All right, we're back. The only podcast on the internet is back. Sorry that you didn't have any podcast to listen to earlier this week, but took a little break for our mentals and for our recreations. Arian and I went to Lake Charles, Louisiana, the happiest place on earth. I can confirm that Arian Foster is the world's best slot player. He's a fucking slot fanatic.
Up there. I'm fucking up there, bro. I'm getting up there. I had hit, a shorty hit on 800, and I hit the next day. I hit on 1K.
It's pretty good.
What?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
What?
So all the haters that say that Arian didn't have good enough hands to play out of the slot, think again. Think again.
What? How much were the slots you were playing?
Hold on. How long had you been holding on to that?
It just occurred to me right now when I said that you're like the
Okay.
greatest slot player of all time. I was like, I should probably make a joke about his hands. Aaron, you think if I had gold like that, I would have been able to save it for this long? No,
I don't know.
No, I
That's
would
a pretty good. Yeah.
have emptied the clip
I'm
on
with
you down in Louisiana. But it was a good time. You are very talented at the slots. I got my clock clean night 1 and blackjack. Night 2 and 3 kind of came back a little bit. But it was a fun time. Shout out to the L'Auberge Casino Resort and the Barstool Sportsbook there. The L'Auberge is like the nicest. It's such a nice place. If you're passing through Lake Charles.
I had no idea. I'm like 2.5 hours drive, so I'm definitely going to go back. And then they had that, what was that steakhouse? Emery? The Emery?
Yeah, was it Emery or
Yeah.
Ember? Something like that?
Ember. Definitely started with an E. But that was one of the best steaks I've had, dog. That shit was, we went back the night we left. That shit was amazing, man.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And then we did the Lazy River there. Lazy Rivers, I think that's got to be one of my favorite inventions of all time. We didn't even give a shit that it was raining outside. We were like, you know what, we're gonna sit.
No, that enhanced the experience. If you've never swam in the rain, it's one of the greatest things there is to do.
Mm-hmm. I would say Lazy River is my favorite body of water.
I mean, rafting.
Easily, yeah.
Rafting's a little.
Lazy River's better.
But like when you get a bunch of tubes and tie them together, and then you go down a real river.
You're talking about tubing, yeah.
No, but not like tubing from a boat. Like you all
you
tie up,
you float the river.
Float the river.
Yeah, that's
like a real river.
That's fun too. Lazy Rivers, I think Lazy Rivers are a little bit nicer.
I know, but it's like adds to the danger.
The outdoor.
And you also have like
there's
a
no
cooler.
animals in them. I'm straight. I'm good.
You had a cooler that's also tied up.
Yeah, that's fun.
I prefer the real deal.
I'm not gonna sit here and besmirch floating a river because I love doing that. But lazy rivers, I think, are the best body of water. It trumps them all.
Quick question: how much? What price spins were you guys playing on slots?
That's a question for Arian. I wasn't playing slots.
So 88 cents at the beginning, but what I noticed was that you hit a little bigger when you go a little bigger, and so. I know these machines are set up for you to lose, but I think if you just stay at it, like you'll hit. And so I bumped it up to $1.50 a spin.
Oh wow!
Then after that, I started hitting like really big, and so I would like win twice. There's all kind of bonus. They're fun as shit. And I would go to another machine, and I usually go where nobody was. Like if it's like really heavy traffic, I would try to stay away from them. And I would only do like aesthetically pleasing ones. I know it's a little subjective, but
I like the ones with the buffalo on it.
Yeah.
That stares into your eyes.
Yeah, those buffaloes, they're everywhere. That's like a very common one. Yeah.
I love the buffalo.
Have y'all noticed there's like some problematic slot machines?
Yeah.
The most recent time I played slots was UT played a basketball game in Connecticut at Mohegan Sun, so we went to the casino. And there's like Chinese slots that have like some very stereotypical Chinese characters in them.
We should cancel the slots.
There was a Crazy Rich Asians slot machine.
Oh, really?
Here. Yeah.
Oh, bruh. Oh, my God. Okay, so my short is Vietnamese. I don't know if you heard this, PFT, but you remember we was at the blackjack table. It was all, and I got cleaned out on the blackjack table too, but we was all sitting there, and there was that like drunk white dude.
Okay, so wait. Where was this? Was this on the main floor, or was this in the Barstool
main
Sports
floor?
Bar?
Main floor.
Yeah, so I remember.
Right,
I remember there was a drunk guy that had like a weird hand tattoo, looked like a prison tat or something like that.
Yeah, he was right. He was right by you.
Yeah.
And so my girl's Vietnamese, and then my girl was just standing behind me. She don't play blackjack. And then there was this dude, And he says the most racist shit ever, dog. He goes, it's funny, but it's fucking racist. And I'm just like, come on. And I was too drunk. I was like, I don't want to start no shit. But he was like, because my girl was like talking about the slots that she hit. She hit for like $800. And the machine, it was Crazy Rich Asians. So it's like the theme of the movie. And so it's like all the little slots and stuff are people's heads or like items from that movie or whatever. And then they were talking about it. She said, yeah, I played the Crazy Rich Asians. And some dude goes, yeah, my girl's playing the slots right now. Man, when she gets drunk, she's a Crazy Rich Asian. And then he does his eyes like that. And I'm like,
oh, no.
Oh, yeah. And then I was like, maybe his girl's Asian. Maybe that might lighten him over. Nah, she was like Mexican. He was just being racist.
You can't do that.
Yeah, I didn't want to ruin the vibe by like calling him out.
What does that even mean?
It doesn't really mean anything. He just wanted to do the Asian eye thing.
Yeah, it was a segue to the other bad joke.
He was looking for an excuse to do that.
Had nothing in my gut. And I was like, I that was a good lesson for me because my younger days I would have tried him, but I was like, I'm too old to fight. Like I didn't even want to fight him.
Yeah, and on the casino floor, if you see two guys fighting, then the security runs over, and you'd probably beat the shit out of him because he was 60.
Oh,
probably,
no question.
Yeah, in his
no.
mid-60s.
It was the younger dude. It wasn't the old cat. The old cat was cool as shit. It was the younger dude right next to
that guy was drunk too. Yeah. Shit. Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
That guy, I was gonna say the older dude had at least a built-in excuse because he's old, 2 he's hammered, 3 it looks like he spent the last like 30 years in prison, which that would probably be like one of the least racist things that he's probably said in prison.
He was cool as shit actually. He was like he kept fucking up because like they're super serious about putting the larger chips on the bottom.
Yeah,
and so like if you have a cheaper chip on the top, on the bottom, like they flip out. They won't deal the hand unless you fix it. And he did it like 6 times.
I did not see the young guy do the Asian eye stereotype thing, but it would have been if you had gotten into a fight with him, you would have beaten him up, and then security would have come over, and then you would have gotten in trouble. Now, but the big question is your girlfriend mad at you for not saying anything about it?
I thought she was gonna be, and she was like, nah, because I mean, she knows like I used to be kind of a hothead, and so like she knows that was growth for me, and like we were all having such a good time, like that would have just ruined the shit. You know what I mean? Like, and then we'd had to go back. I probably got kicked out, and you know, like a whole bunch of we were there because the Barstool thing. I was like, I don't know, it was just too much.
I would have been like, sir, I don't know this man. I don't know him. He just. Yeah. He says he does a podcast with me. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Now, I think if he would have I think it's different. Like if somebody physically assaults you, right? But like verbal stuff is like you can get over as we grow. Like it's still shitty, but yeah, I think she was good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we weren't going to let anything ruin the great time that we had built up in the Lazy River, which is fantastic. So I want to do a tour of Lazy Rivers. Tell me if you guys know any like must hit lazy rivers in the United States. I feel like that's something that I would go to a destination to experience the top 10 lazy rivers in the United States.
Yeah, I'm down. Send me that list too.
There's a good lazy river, not great, a good one in Houston at one of these hotels. It's on a rooftop, and it's the outline of the state of Texas that goes around the rooftop.
Send me that. I'm in it. I'm down.
We interviewed John Clayton next to that lazy river one time. R.I.P.
Oh, R.I.P. Oh, also R.I.P. I don't know if anybody watches battle rap in here, but there's a dude.
Oh yeah.
Named Pat Stay. Pat Stay was the battle rapper. He was from Canada. He was super nice, super involved in the culture, super cool dude. Matter of fact, he was up at Barstool.
Yeah.
When I was there. He was, I don't know if you remember him, PFT.
Yeah.
But he was while we was filming the science fair, the portion when it was just me and you, he actually came in the room and I was gonna speak to him, and I was like, hold on one second. Because Big K was there too. I don't know if y'all know battle rap like that, but he was there. But like R.I.P. man, he got stabbed in Canada.
Yeah, he's a good friend of our coworker Roan.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's a terrible situation.
Sad.
Yeah, that's tough. I don't know how to segue out of that. I was going to do something fun about lazy rivers, but
Maddie beat someone up this weekend.
Oh yeah.
Maddie, she was throwing hands.
No,
I heard she was bragging about it before we started podcasting.
Mad Dog got into a fight
with a dude.
You guys, okay, you guys chill. No, I didn't. I almost got into a fight with a dude this weekend. Not over Harry Styles, actually. But I was in Columbus this weekend.
Over Harry Styles?
No, not over Harry Styles, shockingly enough.
Oh.
No, this weekend I was in Columbus for the Ohio State game, and I was out one night, and I was sitting at a table with all my girlfriends, and these two dudes came up to us and were like, "Oh, we're new to Columbus. We're trying to make friends," and we couldn't avoid like saying hi to you guys. And I was like, "Oh, this is bullshit." Like already, like that's so creepy. I hate when guys do that. And
Wait, what specifically about it was creepy?
Yeah, that doesn't sound creepy at all.
no,
It sounds like
pretty-
people
that's pretty-
people came over and they're like, "Hey, we're new in town.
No,
I don't have any
because-
friends. You guys look friendly. Hello." And
No.
Mad Dog's like, "Ew."
yeah, well, yes, because they just came up to us. They came up to us without like it was two of them, but then there was like four people behind them, like watching, like their entourage. And I look at them, I go, "Why do you have a fucking entourage with you?" And he was like, "Oh, well, we're just trying to make friends." And I was like, "Oh, okay." We didn't say anything because none of us are from there, so we're like, "Oh, we're all visiting, haha." And then they just decide to sit down, which I hate that move. I hate that you just decide to sit down at my table move. And so then I was pissed. So then I was like kind of being short with them. And I think I'm never short with you guys, obviously, because you're all my bosses. But like,
Are we all your bosses?
well, not all of you.
I am now officially your
Oh,
boss.
keep that on tape.
No.
yeah. Wait.
As your
Legitimately,
boss.
do you think that Billy is your boss?
No. Should I? No, but like,
I do want to give Billy somebody to be the boss of, though. I think that would be
not
good for him.
me.
Jake
First, go
Malasek.
Teach
Yeah,
him.
Jake
I don't
Malasek.
think
We
I'm gonna
mentioned
start with Maddie.
Yeah.
Can I get an
but
intern?
you know what I'm saying, Arian? Like, I would like to teach Billy responsibility, much like if you get your child
A dog.
A dog. I think it'd be good for Billy to be somebody's boss.
I think Jake Malasek is a good start.
Okay.
But
I'm gonna get my own intern.
oh god. But yeah, so the dude sat down next to us, and so then I was just being short with him, and all my friends kind of backed out of the conversation. So then it was just me and these two dudes, like, and I was just ripping on them, and I was like, "Oh, okay, haha, whatever." I was like calling them dumb to their face. I was not excited to talk to them, and the two dudes were like, "Oh, what do you guys like? What do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't say that I worked here. I just said I work in journalism." Don't know why I said that because I don't do that, but it's what I majored in. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
And my roommate was next to me, and she said, "I do marketing." They go, "Oh, where do you guys live in the city?" I said, "I live in New York." You know, whatever. He goes, "Oh, I just moved from White Plains. Where do you live?" I said, "You know, what neighborhood I live in." And he was like, the other dude was like, "Oh, so you think you're the shit because you live in New York City?" And what I thought was a joke, I was like, "Yeah, I think I'm actually awesome." And I was like, "You guys, you know, whatever. Like, you guys aren't as cool as me." Making a joke, I thought. And so the dude made a very ableist joke at my friend, and I'm going to say it, but I didn't say it. These aren't my words. He said, "Well, my cousin with Down syndrome could do marketing in New York." And I was like, "You came up to us, started talking to us, and now you're making fun of me. Fuck you." So
Wait,
then-
isn't that a very progressive thing to say, though? Like,
he didn't say it like progressively though. And I was like, "Okay." And he was like, "What, do you make $22,000 a year?" And I was like, "No." Then I start lying because I'm like, "Fuck you, buddy." So then I start lying about like I make so much money and all this stuff. And he was like, "Just because you make a lot of money doesn't mean you have a good career." And then I go, "What the fuck do you do?" And he was like, "I'm a neurology major." He's in college and he's like a neuroscience student. Cool, whatever. I don't care. But just stop talking to me. And I was like, "Oh," so I turned to the friend, "This guy must be an idiot." I could never do neuroscience. But I was like, "Oh, so this guy must be a fucking idiot." And he's like, "Oh, haha, yeah." And he goes, "Oh, yeah? You think I'm a fucking idiot?" And I was like, he's like, "You're never going to get anywhere in life." Where are you coming from?
Yeah, well, okay. This guy is definitely
Dog's teed
incel
off.
vibe.
Yeah, incel vibe for sure. And he had those teeth like cartoon characters have,
Uh-oh.
where it's all one straight row. You know what I'm talking about? And it made me so mad. And he was wearing
Get 'em.
an Aztec patterned short sleeve button down that was two
Get
sizes
'em.
too small.
Okay.
Like literally try harder to look like an asshole. And so I was like, literally
Get
go
'em.
fuck yourself, dude. And he was like, "Oh yeah, you think you're hot shit?" And I was like, "I do. So why don't you back the fuck off?" I was getting so mad. None of my friends are helping me. I'm there by myself. And the other friend's like, "Dude, back off. Like, chill." And he was like, No, she thinks she's all that. She's never going to do anything with her life. And I was like, "Where did you come from? We're at a bowling bar in Columbus, Ohio. Chill on it." And then I was like, "Do you want to go outside right now? Like, I'll go outside." And he was like, "Oh yeah, you think you could take me?" I could take that kid in a heartbeat. And I was like, get away from me. And I was like, get the fuck off get out of my table. And he was like, oh, you think you can kick me out? I go, I know I can kick you out. Get up.
I love how everything he says starts with "oh."
He did. And it was like he just kept telling me that I was never going to do anything with my life. And I was like, I didn't tell him that I worked here because I don't think, sometimes if people get mad, I can like kind of drop the Barstool card. This dude wasn't going to get impressed by that. So I didn't. I was like, okay, whatever, leave. And his friend takes him out and I give him the double bird to his face. I go, go fuck yourself. And I hope my mom's not listening to this. And I was like, go fuck yourself, dude. And the guy's like, oh, I'm sorry about my friend. I just met him a month ago. I go, I don't give a fuck. Get him out of here. And then I was shaking and then he left. But I was like, I almost took him outside and I wouldn't have felt bad about it. And I was like, who comes up to someone at their table that they weren't invited to and then rags on them for like 10 minutes? I was so mad. And then I was like shaking because I had like adrenaline going. I'm like foaming at the mouth right now talking about it. I was like shaking because I was so upset and like I had adrenaline running through me. And then I was like, I don't know what to do with myself now because the dude was still in the bar. But I was like, I don't know what to do. And it was like a weird older bar. So I was like by far one of the youngest people there. So I couldn't do anything.
Older bar.
Like everyone there was like 50s and 60s.
It's retirement community. What kind of bar is this?
Why are you there?
I don't know. My friends took me there. It was a fun place, but it was like one of those bars that like, it was like a parents' night out bar kind of thing. And I was like, who are you, dude? And it made me so mad that the dude was wearing the fucking Aztec short sleeve button down shirt with the fucking cartoon teeth. Like he didn't look real. And then he's telling me that he's a neuroscience major. Dude,
okay. All right. I can tell that you're upset.
We didn't even get to the Harry Styles stuff yet.
Andrew didn't get to Harry Styles. He didn't fucking spit on.
I can tell that you're upset right now about that. I need you to take a couple deep breaths and relax.
Sorry about that, guys.
I want to kill this guy.
Same.
I want to kill this guy.
I mean, the biggest
honestly, I don't really know like what the crux of the entire argument was. It sounds like they just got off to a bad start with you, and it just kept digging in.
And I don't get mad that often, and they just
see, that's what I'm saying. I don't really understand what the fight was about, but I do know that Mad Dog doesn't get mad at people. So if she's actually furious at this guy,
God,
she's probably in the right about it.
Yeah, they were just bagging on me and my job and my roommate's job, and I was like, "What are you doing?"
To be fair,
your fake job.
Your job was fake. That wasn't your job.
But I didn't
Still,
they're making fun of my made-up career.
Yeah.
What was the amount of money you told them when you said you lied and said you made a ton of money?
Oh, like $200,000. Which they don't know that.
Yeah.
I was just curious what number you would say when you were lying about how much money you made.
Yeah, I said like $200K.
So it sounds like these guys they wanted to make friends with your table, and they approached it in maybe the most clumsy, least smooth way possible.
No, you can tell that this is their mindset because I've studied these people. Mm-hmm. They think that women owe them something.
Yes.
So they walk over, sit down at their table,
and they're like,
they don't even give like like any sort of leading remark to sort of seem attractive or be like, "Hey, you mind if we sit here?"
No, they were like, "We're gonna sit here now
for a table."
What sort of leading remark would you have made, Billy?
Well, there are ways to do that without. But they came in, they were expecting something. They were like praise us.
What? Give me a Billy
You
line.
hear me spit game?
Yeah, I want Billy's leading remark.
Well, it depends on the scenario, and like
it's this scenario, Billy.
Yeah.
Well, this scenario,
you're at a bowling bar in Columbus, Ohio.
It's a bowling alley with a bar.
It's like it's one of those like like an arcade bar type thing.
So Billy, let's set the scene. You're in a bowling bar in Columbus. Everyone around you is 70 years old.
Okay.
Except this one table of Mad Dog and how many of her friends?
5 girls.
5 girls who are all under the age of 70.
Okay. Oh, here's an easy one. You walk up to the table, you go, "Hey guys, it looks like we're the youngest people here. You mind if we take a seat with you guys?"
Yeah, they didn't say that.
That was very smooth.
And then if they say, and then they're like, "No, we don't know you," then you'd be like, "Oh, sorry to intrude." Walk away. Look like you're having a lot of fun, because then the people sitting down might not be having fun. If they say, "Hey, that's a fun group of guys.
Yeah.
We're not having fun. We want to
Let's go
find
have
some fun.
fun."
Maybe we should invite them over."
Yeah, no, they just came over and started ragging on my fake job and my roommate's real job.
I think Billy's right though that the
taking of the table is too aggressive,
should
because
not
then
do that.
you're an intruder. You're not a potential
intruder.
suitor.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a threat.
And the one dude, the one dude that
about it in evolutionary terms.
No,
Yes.
Billy's acting like it's a family of gorillas out like in the jungle, and then a stranger comes in and sits down and starts eating bananas with you.
Yeah.
And it showed me its teeth. Look at its teeth. It's a cartoon.
They probably stared you in the eyes.
Well,
straight
and
up.
I kind of channeled my inner
side-eye.
Billy. I kind of channeled my inner Billy for a second because the one dude that I didn't want to fight was trying to like have a conversation with me, and I just kept spinning it back. Like I was being very direct, which I usually am not. I was just kind of being like, I don't know, not really giving in to the conversation. And I think the dude I wanted to fight kind of got scared because I was if he was an incel, which I'm going to paint him as an incel.
He's a neuroscience major.
Yeah, and he was saying,
Is that a red flag, Billy?
His IQ is probably too high for his
vert-
problem solving ability.
yeah, but I think the dude I wanted to fight got threatened by how conversational I was.
Yeah.
You were too.
He was probably intimidated.
You were too calm.
Yeah, I was too calm, and then I pulled the move when he was leaving, where you know when you're angry, but then you act really calm to kind of scare someone. I'm like, oh yeah, dude, just get. And he was like, oh fuck you, and I was like, okay, yeah, totally.
He probably thought he was flirting.
I don't know what he was
Him is by, like,
about
those
to
girls
get
were
punched
totally-
in the face. And here's my thing. I've never gotten in a fight. I've never gotten close to a fight. That was the closest I've probably ever been to actually punching someone in the face. But I think that he was like, oh, what's she gonna do? I wear like 8 rings at all times. I have like brass knuckles built in. I will punch you. I don't know what would happen to my hand if that
Don't
happened.
take those over the border. You can
Why?
get an international weapons charge.
They're just rings.
This is where
If
Billy
you
just makes stuff up. Don't
Brass
let-
knuckles?
don't- don't
No,
I don't-
my
listen.
buddy got
I don't have
arrested for
actual-
taking brass knuckles into Canada.
I don't
Yeah,
have
but
actual brass
Billy,
knuckles.
Okay, well, I thought you actually.
No,
A
no, no,
woman
I'm
can
just
wear
saying
rings on her
these.
hand.
I didn't know they were rings.
No.
It's
but
like when Billy said that he had to register his hands as lethal weapons.
I didn't. When you get your boxing license,
Yeah.
you're a professional,
Yeah.
and that in court of law, it's a whole different.
Billy's court talks are very funny. Last week we were going out to Long Island, and I forget how we got on the topic, but oh yeah, Kelly, our good friend Kelly, she works here at Barstool. She's pregnant. She came up and she was talking to us about how like emotional and she was being and hormonal she was feeling that particular day, and then Billy goes, "Yeah, you know, like pregnant women can't get charged with murder. They just get manslaughter." And I was like, Billy, that's definitely not true. And Billy's like, no,
Ireland.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Women
But it's in
murder.
Ireland. It's only in Ireland. And I was like, I don't think that's true either, Billy. And then he said, yeah, if you're on your period in Ireland, you only get manslaughter charges.
Okay, I blame my mom for this because she told this to me. I'm serious.
Don't you put that on Miss Billy.
Yeah.
She knows.
But Mad Dog, we're glad that you didn't get into a fight because you would have
Thank you.
killed that guy.
I also probably would have gotten like arrested or something.
Yeah.
Gender
I
and
don't
the
wanna do that.
insanity defense in 19th century Ireland.
So it's
Okay,
been a
Pull this
while.
up. It might be.
It sounds like maybe one case where somebody pleaded
Yeah, it might have just
insanity.
been one case.
Yeah, but I'm going to go with that. In Ireland, if you're on your period, you can't get charged with murder. It's just manslaughter.
Have at it, ladies. It's your purge.
Maybe she just told me that to scare me.
That she might kill you?
Never dated a woman from Ireland.
I
Or
never
just
will.
Never piss her off.
Yeah. Oh, well, Mad Dog, we're glad that you're safe and sound.
Thanks, guys.
And if you need Billy to kick that guy's ass, just you're his boss, so you can let him know. People forget that's how Mad Dog got hired.
Yeah, she is my boss.
Said that she would be Billy's boss.
Billy never brought me eggs either.
Well, they all my chickens got killed.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that
Sorry.
up, Mad
Yeah.
Dog. It's a little insensitive. of
Maybe
you.
this is why people get into that.
Yeah, this is why people get mad.
No, I'm joking.
I wish there was a video of that interaction, though. I wish I could have seen the guys sit down. In that circumstance, Billy's right. The best way to start talking to a table of girls is you just have more fun, and then they want to hang out with you.
And it's
That's how
just-
it works.
And it's just like, what do you talk about with 2 random strange men that are coming up to you? And then I was 1-on-2, and I was getting double teamed, and I I didn't know what to do besides just get mad.
Oh,
Arian had quite a reaction to that.
Oh,
Wrong-
no.
Wrong verbiage. Wrong
Sorry, I
verbiage.
didn't mean it like that.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything.
Shit,
but yeah.
I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like
Mad
that.
Dog, make a clip of that real quick.
No. I didn't mean it like that. But yeah, no. Fuck them. Fuck those dudes.
I think mistake number 1 was hanging out in Columbus.
Low-key, Columbus is really, really fun.
Okay.
It is.
I can see any big college town could
Yeah.
probably be fun.
It was fun. Also, people were really ragging on me for wearing Ohio State stuff. I'm sorry. I didn't want to stand out
Are you
as a
not?
Notre Dame
Are you
fan.
not allowed to? Wait. You were
Wait.
wearing Ohio State merch.
Yeah. But
and,
I'm
and
not.
you're a Notre Dame fan.
Yeah,
And
okay.
they were
Did
playing
you go to
against-
the game?
No.
It's still weird.
I know. Guys, I'm a 23-year-old girl that wanted to fit in with her friends.
Okay, that's it.
yeah.
That's honestly
No,
a fair
totally
example.
understand.
Like
I did
I
that by wearing a
That's all
shirt.
you had to say.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
That's a very good excuse. Just want to
Yeah,
fit
we
in.
gotta shake that. We gotta shake that. Go against the grain. That's even funner amongst your friends.
No, but then I was like meeting all my girlfriend's friends, and I didn't want to be like, oh, why are you? It was a whole thing. But Columbus was
fun
actually
to me.
Columbus is a very fun town.
She didn't want to rock the boat.
I didn't want to rock the boat, but Columbus is
you.
very fun. I will say.
I'm a boat rocker by nature, so
You are.
yeah.
But yeah, Columbus is fun.
That was Dogged Up with Mad Dog. That's her new segment that she's doing where she gets dogged up about something. She's kind of swagger jacking Big T and is teed off, but Big T's teed off corner is coming to you via Concrete. Concrete is the best creatine that you can buy. There's some myths out there about creatine. One myth is creatine's a type of steroid. A fact would be creatine is actually a natural molecule that your body produces, and it's present in various foods because your body needs more than it makes. Here's a myth that creatine is used to bulk up. Here's a fact. Creatine helps with lean muscle gains, increased strength, endurance, and fitness. It won't make you huge. Creatine is just a building block to help your body achieve maximum performance. Concrete is the best creatine you can buy because it uses the number one bioavailable creatine with 70% greater plasma uptake than standard creatine monohydrate. Creatine monohydrate, that's the one that'll it'll cramp you up, right, Billy?
Yeah.
Turns you into a poop guy.
Messes you up, bloats you up.
Bloats you up, makes you into a poop person, but not with concrete. Concrete creatine is the only microdosing creatine. So you just do one small scoop per 100 pounds of body weight, and it tastes great too. I'm telling you, this concrete lemon lime, it's fantastic, and it's good for your brain too, because your brain uses about 20% of the creatine in your body. Just to think. We're going to hook you guys up with a deal here. You can take control of your health, both your body and your mind. Build a better you with Concrete. Register now at concrete.com/podcast. That's con-cret.com/podcast to receive free membership to Planet Fitness for an entire year, plus a $500 Walmart Visa gift card. Available now online and in-store at Walmart. Concrete is truly life-changing and performance-enhancing. I use it all the time. Billy uses it all the time. It's a great product. Concrete. Now, teed off. Okay, well, I mean, teed off has some work to do after that one.
And the thing is, I don't even have a really good one this week, so
Oh,
it's going to
no.
pale in comparison.
Okay.
Emmed off.
Yeah, someone said what I'm mad about.
Yeah, just consider that was teed off.
Dogged up.
Really, the only thing I'm teed off about I'm not even mad. It's just a recent occurrence in my life. I've developed a crippling addiction
Oh,
to
shit.
Candy Crush Saga.
Oh,
What
God.
year is it?
I know. It's bad. I'm staying up till like 1:30 in the morning playing Candy Crush.
Yeah, it is
What
addicting.
level are you on?
I just started the other day. I'm at like 150, but I checked to see if the thing from 2012 still worked, where if you run out of lives and you go into your settings and change the time forward 4 hours, it gives you your lives back, and it does. So I still just have unlimited lives, and I just play for hours on end. It's a big problem.
Wow, I didn't know that was a thing.
How'd you get into it in the year of 2022?
I recently purchased an iPad, and my girlfriend was playing it on there, and then I was like, let me try that. And so I played it, and then I just kept playing. And then she like wanted the iPad back, and I was like, no, I'm playing this for the foreseeable future. And then did that till like 1 a.m, and then did it again last night, and I plan on doing it again tonight.
So, in something that was supposed to be a bit, I've also picked up an addiction to yerba mate.
Who?
I don't think you were
his
there.
least
Oh, you missed
drink.
this.
Yeah, have you heard of mate, Arian?
Have I heard of mate? Like, no, I don't think so.
It's this thing they do down in South America. Anyway, it turns out I realized why like all of Uruguayan Congress and Argentina drink it all the time, and everyone's addicted to it because it is addicting. Gives you a buzz.
Yeah.
So that's why you're doing it, just to get a buzz at work.
Yeah,
Got it.
I mean, you could say the same thing about caffeine. Caffeine's addicting.
yeah, but this is different.
Yeah, I'm going through crippling withdrawals right now from Zen, and I'm replacing it with yerba mate.
Has it kicked in yet?
It's kicking in a little bit. It's helping out.
Are y'all plugging something? Is this a?
No.
No, it's just a
Oh.
tea that Billy brought in last week.
Oh, okay.
You thought he went into
Thought it was
ad
another Billy
mode?
ad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not a
You
plug.
tried this yerba mate stuff?
yeah. It got really weird for a
Well,
second.
yerba
It was like a
mate
Truman
actually
show.
it's just called mate. I think yerba mate is an actual brand, so just mate. This is
I actually like Big T's ad voice that he did right there. That was good, Big T.
Well, it was me doing Billy's ad voice.
Yeah, it was good though. It's like when
Thanks.
Billy speaks in Russian, in the Russian accent.
Yeah.
You could actually read a hell of an ad if you were doing your Billy
Reading an ad
voice.
as Billy reading an ad.
Yeah. So go into HQ real quick. You're gonna do the second ad when it comes up. But as far as your Candy Crush Saga addiction goes, you should stream it. You should go live on Twitch
I might.
streaming Candy Crush.
Ooh, we need a Twitch for this pod.
Yeah.
That'd be dope.
We should get
what
one.
would he Twitch? What would he Twitch?
I mean,
What will
Arian
you
will
Twitch?
do
Sound like
Valorant all
Boomer,
day.
Daddy. What will you Twitch?
I don't. Twitch
Oh,
and
it's gonna be
Discord,
Valorant for the most part. Yeah, it's Valorant or just
I'll
talk
play
shit.
the show on there.
Yeah. I mean, Candy Crush I actually think would be an interesting stream. Nobody's thought of streaming like an app game like that before, I don't think. But my problem with Candy Crush was when I got really into it, if I played it for a long time and I put it down, I started grouping things in my eyes when I was like looking around into like pairs and like triples and quads, and like my eyes would act like, this is a very Mad Dog thing of me to say, would act like I could move things around and find patterns in the real world since I've been staring at this. Do I sound completely insane?
I
get
see
what
what
you're
you're
saying.
going for.
You sound exactly like me.
Yeah, now I realize how she must feel when she's like explaining her brain. But in Candy Crush, I feel like there's a correlation though, because that's what you do to like move things along. And I started to do that like traffic lights. I'd be like, ooh, that's a triple right there. It really fucked me up, so I had to quit Candy Crush. So are you? But you're happy with your addiction, right? You're not trying to quit.
It's fun so far. We'll see how long it lasts. Does anyone know? Are the levels just infinite? Is there an end to the game? How long does it go?
no.
I know, like my roommate's on level like 1200.
Oh, okay, so I've got a while.
You've got some time.
Candy Crush Saga currently holds 12,455 levels.
That's so many. But yeah, I haven't done that in a long time. I haven't done Candy Crush. Quit that shit
have
cold
an app.
turkey.
I have an app called Wadoku, and it's just you try to beat your score, and there's no point to it. You just eliminate squares, and it's just nonstop. And I've been doing this for about a year now. There's no
Wudoku?
goal. Yeah, it's just there's no goal. You just keep going.
That's kind of zen though. I like it.
Yeah, it's pretty calming. Actually, it's like more like a fidget tool. I need fidget tools, and so it's more like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no goal.
All right, Big T. Anything else you're teed off about?
I'll tell you one thing I'm teed off about. You ever have your wallet in your pocket and it's just like really thick,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, damn,
That happens all the time to me.
Stun
I
on 'em,
really
stun on 'em.
wish
Stun
that
on
if
a
I
big
just
team.
reached into my pocket, I wouldn't have to dig out this big ass wallet.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
There's a solution for that.
What's
What?
that?
Let me just reach in right here, pull out my Ridge wallet.
Oh,
Very
whoa.
nice.
The Ridge wallet holds up to 12 cards plus room for cash, this handy little cash holder right here. There's over 30 colors and styles, including carbon fiber and burnt titanium. I feel like that mine's got a little tiger to it. A little tiger stripe.
Little stripe action.
They also have a new key case to help organize your keys. I think y'all have one of those over there. It secures anywhere from 2 to 6 keys, organizes your keys in a compact silhouette and fold out for easy access. There's also 6 colors of those. Check out their site and use the code MACRO for 10% off their order. And with every dollar spent on the website before September 30th, so you've got a couple weeks, you'll be entered to win a brand new updated Ford Bronco, Avery's car, or you just take $75,000.
I heard they're actually giving Avery's car away. Yes. Oh, my mic is not. Right?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
You waited so long, and now
you
you can just get Avery's car.
If you want Avery's car, then get signed up. What's that website again?
That's a great question. They didn't put it in the ad read. I'm going to assume it's ridgewallet.com.
Yep.
But hang on for me. Ridge.com. Just ridge.com.
Okay.
But if you type in ridgewallet.com, it also takes you to ridge.com.
It'll redirect.
So go to ridge.com, use promo code MACRO, and you'll get 10% off. And every dollar spent before September 30th, you're entered to win Avery's car or $75,000.
I've got a question, Big T. I'm worried about the IRS reaching into my pocket and taking money out. Using
it's a valid concern.
Joe Biden just hired 87,000 new IRS agents.
Arms.
They're going to be walking past me in the streets with their little scanners, trying to get into my wallet, into my credit and debit cards. I want the IRS's hands out of my pocket.
Well, that's another reason to get the Ridge Wallet PFT. It's made with RFID blocking technology.
Okay.
That will protect you from digital pickpocketers, so you're not getting in here.
Like the IRS.
Yep.
Okay. The only wallet that will protect you against the IRS.
Nice.
I mean, if that doesn't get you to ridge.com to use promo code MACRO for 10% off right now, I don't know what does.
That's a hell of an ad read.
The keychain's cool too. Like if you have a lot of weird keys like Billy, you can throw that in there. I know you don't have your keys today.
I don't have my keys on me.
I've actually wanted one of these for a very long time. So when I got one for free, shout out Ridge Wallet, that was pretty sick.
Yep.
I hoard keys because you never know when you're going to need one of those keys that you picked up over the years.
But like, what do they go to?
Everywhere.
All right. Get the keychain then.
Yeah, I got the keys. Shout out DJ Khaled.
Major Key. Another one. You remember that? DJ Khaled, start eating pussy, buddy. Remember that? He just went on a media tour.
Yeah.
Of being
I
like,
don't eat.
yeah, he was just getting like, I don't know. He was going on The View, being like, yeah, I don't fuck with the clam.
He always has something like it's like every couple of months. Like that now his thing is God did. Like he says God did with everything, and it's his new album name. But like it's always been like Major Key, and then he had like the no pussy eating thing.
Another one.
Yep, another one.
Another.
So what's God did mean?
I don't know. He has one that's
It's a new song.
God didn't eat.
With it's not his album. Is his album? Yeah.
No, it is the album. It's called.
It went viral because Jay-Z had like a crazy verse on it, and so like that was trending for a while.
Yeah, it was really good, and apparently
yeah,
Jay-Z just walked in the studio and did it. Like he didn't have any like notes written down or anything.
Isn't that what he does?
No, he never does. Yeah, he never
Really?
does. Jay-Z, he listens to the beat and he writes it like in his head, and then he'll go in the studio and spit it.
It's crazy.
The down part of that is he convinced a whole bunch of other people to do that, and they're not as good at it. And so like you had a whole bunch of people spitting whack ass verses back in my day. But he used to do it for a reason. It's a really interesting story. He used to like practice it when he was growing up. He didn't have any. I think he was taking like some train from one place to another, and he didn't have no paper and pen, so he would just recite stuff over and over in his head that he would remember. And so he just built up this high tolerance of remembering lines that he wanted to say. And so over the years, he just developed it into a craft. And so he'll go into the studio, he'll just listen to it like for like, I don't know, however long. And then he'll go in there and spit his verse without writing anything down.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's dope.
DJ Khaled's his album names are just hilarious. So this was God Did. The last one was just Khaled. Then it was Father of Assad, which is his son. Then it's Grateful, Major Key, I Changed a Lot, Suffering from Success, Kiss the Ring, We the Best Forever, Victory, We Global, and then We the Best.
Wait, so in order, We the Best,
Yep.
Victory.
No, We Global.
Oh, okay, We the Best, We Global.
They went global.
Then We the Best
Forever.
Okay.
And then Kiss the Ring.
Kiss the Ring.
He also did Kiss the Ring Deluxe. then suffering from success.
I mean, that's incredible. So his album names are either about how great he's doing, or conversely, he's going through a hard time because he's so great.
Yeah.
Damn.
Then it's
More
I
money, more
changed a lot.
problems.
Yeah. Prayers up.
After suffering from
Prayers up.
success, it was I changed a lot. And then he went to major key.
Yeah. What happened with I changed a lot? That seems the most emo of all of them. Every other one is like, yeah, I'm great. I'm doing fine.
Maybe he talks about eating pussy.
Yeah.
Maybe.
He
Funny
comes
part
out.
is, he was like on this kick where he was working out, and he was like motivating everybody to work out. He's like, you got to do it. It's major key. You got to do it. Dude would like film himself on a treadmill. I don't think my guy has lost a pound for years.
His Snapchat story is hilarious. Like, if you're not on it, you got to get on it. He's just like screaming like more life. Like he like walks outside, and I guess he's in Florida, so he's on like he's on the coast, but like he'll just walk out of his house and scream like more life.
You remember when he went jet skiing? Didn't he
got
get
lost.
lost on a jet
Yeah.
ski?
Yes. He went like way too far out. I think he like ran out of gas or something.
Yeah, he almost died. He almost died on a jet ski. That would be bad.
Huh.
All right. Well, what else is new? Let's go around the room real quick. We found out about Mad Dog's weekend. Arian and I uploaded you on his slot abilities. Billy, what are you up to?
My weekend was a success.
Actually, I'll tell you what Billy's up to. I walked into the office this morning and Billy looked up at me with this like, his eyelids were 90% closed and his hair was all messed up. And he was just like, I've been watching so many videos. Preparing for today's show. And I was like, uh-oh. Billy's been up all night watching 9/11 videos. This is...
No, what's great, I mean it's terrible, but there's a lot of information out there debunking a lot of 9/11 conspiracies, and a lot of it does what I did watch, which was like I took a bunch of notes because I was 2 years old when 9/11 happened, and being from New York, it's had a huge like impact on my surroundings, knowing people, the skyline of New York. And I literally watched 2 hours of synced footage of newsreels and videos from what happened, and it is the scariest things I've ever seen. And
you've watched a lot of videos.
I watched a lot of videos, and I put myself through. I mean, no one should watch that much stuff.
Thank you for your service, Billy.
Well, it's bad. I mean, I like almost started crying. It's just painful to watch.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So that's what you've been up to.
Where's to start? I mean, I don't know.
Wait,
there's a lot of stuff around this.
Before we get into that, just tell me about how was your weekend? How are things?
I drove to a single location next to the water, and I did not leave that location for 3 days. Didn't leave the premises.
He full sent with the boys.
I full sent,
Okay.
and it's been sent.
Was it a beach?
It's been sent and delivered.
Was it an ocean?
It was next to the ocean, and it was sent.
You went to the beach
A beach house
and hung out at a beach house.
for 4 days and drank. There was 8 30 racks and 4 36 racks consumed, which is 240 plus 144.
Hey, Billy, I'm just curious.
384 beers.
You said 36 racks, right? That's interesting because I didn't think that you could get 36 racks everywhere. You know what? The one place I do know that you can get 36 racks is here in the office.
Oh.
We have some 36 racks.
Oh.
Where did you get your 36 racks, Billy?
Oh, have you ever? Where's the best place for you to get your 36 racks?
I did see a picture too. There was something swirling around the internet.
Oh, really?
Of Billy leaving the office with.
I think it stumbled upon our Instagram.
I don't get 36 racks of beer.
Why?
Well, because I buy my beer at stores
Oh,
with my money.
that's cool.
So it's just kind of fishy that all of a sudden, Arian, you'll appreciate this. They delivered a bunch of 36 packs of Coors Light to the office for use in our like advertising that we do around the office here.
Yeah.
And then Billy happens to become the only person in the tri-state area with 36 packs of beer that he just somehow ended up with at his beach house.
And so we're allowed to use them for content and ads around them, right? Is that correct?
I don't know. Who did you ask about that?
I talked to the ad team
No, you didn't.
one time. I talked to MB once and said,
Should I call MB?
yeah, well, this was a long time ago.
She probably won't remember.
Were their clients being entertained?
Clients were entertained. The clients were very entertained. There was a fire pit filled with entertained clients, just so entertained.
You burned clients.
After drinking them.
Did you post any ads with them this weekend?
Good question, Avery.
Yeah.
I checked your Instagram. I didn't see anything.
Not on my Instagram, but maybe you check my Twitter.
Okay.
Advanced search mountains are blue.
I'll
You'll see that there was a post regarding clients being entertained.
also stick up for Billy. I'll give him one single flower. He did a drunk driving ad with one.
No, that is no.
Wait, what?
No, what? No, that's totally different. What the fuck?
What did Billy do?
That's the worst thing you could have said.
He did a drunk driving ad with Coors
He
Light.
said,
No.
I'm going to be drinking some of these this
Like
weekend.
promoting it?
I don't.
No, for
That is-
Pro or anti?
We're
Anti
anti.
drunk driving.
Okay, I took 436 bracks from the office, but like they just sit here and then they get stale. How many like beers
Beers get stale.
they get
All right,
stale?
I don't know where
If
to
they're
start.
not drank
First
fast
of all,
enough.
I love the Italian accent Billy slipped into when he's admitting to stealing something from.
All right.
All right. So I took a few 36 racks from the
It
office.
wasn't.
Right?
It's not. That's not an Italian accent. That's
Yeah, it's not
maybe
Italian. What do you want from
tri-state.
Billy goes
That's not-
Italian?
that's- no,
Billy
that's
goes
maybe-
Italian when
maybe
he
that's
commits
a
crimes.
tri-state
They're
accent.
gonna get stale.
They're gonna. What?
But that was second of all, that was Billy's
They
excuse.
fell off the back of a truck.
Billy was like, "Yeah, they actually get stale if they're around the office too long." So I had to. Billy's treating them like
He
they're
did you a favor.
I did you a favor.
like they're rescue dogs.
I rescued
Billy's
those.
like, I gave those beers a forever home.
Who? There's so much beer in there.
Adopt, don't
if
shop.
I don't drink. How much beer was left over from last time we got a beer shipment?
What do you mean? What does that mean?
We get pallets of beer, and
Wait,
the
How
pallet.
many beers around here do not end up in Billy's tummy? That's what
Exactly.
he wants to know.
Yeah,
I don't recall the last beer shipment we got because
I do.
I don't get drunk in the office.
I don't get drunk in the office either. I take it out of the office.
Billy's starting a campaign, save our beers.
Yeah, I might start giving them away outside the office.
Billy becomes the Robin Hood of beers, but he just takes from the sober and gives to himself.
No, but I absolutely sent it with the boys. Had a great time.
Yeah, I can tell.
Played so much beer pong. Still got it. I will 1v1 or anybody or put my squad against anybody.
Your squad.
I had
Yeah, Arian
hit-
would whoop your ass.
no. I hit 6 last cups.
Okay, this is like the
6 last
final boss
cups.
of like nobody cares
Yeah,
about your
okay.
fantasy team. Nobody cares about like the intricacies
I hit
of
6.
a beer pong game.
Yeah, well, people do care. I know who's out there listening. You respect that game.
Billy hit 6
Billy's
last cups.
friends that he was with this weekend care.
They're like, yeah, fuck sick Billy, yeah.
I the clutch
Get 'em,
gene.
Billy.
It
He's
was
texting the GC when we leave. Guys, listen to the show tomorrow.
yeah. They know I have the clutch gene.
Who is the MVP of beer pong?
Me?
Okay, besides you.
The ball. Coors Light. Thank you, Coors Light.
Okay.
So
you-
in more
you-
important topics,
But you literally did for a second be like the beers get stale if they get left around the office.
well, yeah, the beers from like 10 months ago that get dropped
That
off.
might top entertaining clients,
think
to
it
be
might.
honest with you.
Have you ever? So we had the freshest beer right off the line at the Coors Light facility. What do you think happens when the beer is farther down the line?
Billy is rescuing beer. Oh, you're not even doing it as a bit. You're gonna turn it into a bit now. But the concept was
The concept.
Think
I-
of
100%
I'm
serious.
very good at creating bits. Like that was a creation of a bit. Beers get stale if you
think
don't
of
drink
the
them.
tragedy of all the Coors Lights whose mountains never become blue.
Exactly.
Oh my God, that's the Ernest Hemingway saddest story ever written. Beer mountains never blew.
Yeah.
4 words. Sad. Let's do a moment of silence for all the mountains that never got a chance to turn blue. Respect.
All right, now we have to talk about like one of the saddest topics.
Yeah,
ever.
Billy. Okay, so I was going to do a little segue into that, so we didn't have to have Billy just being like, so 9/11. But you kind of took that over for me. That's okay. That's okay. This is an episode that we've wanted to do for a while, and trying to think of a good way to do. We've got Large and Annie coming on, and you know Large. She's been on the show a bunch. Annie's his wife, and she's awesome. She's lovely. And Arian has become good friends with Large, actually, or via this show. Would you say over the weekend you're like, I think Arian said he was my dog a few times.
My dog.
Yeah, Large is interesting dude, and they've got a crazy connection to 9/11. Very personal story, pretty sad, but they've told me before that they enjoy talking about it. It's become therapeutic, and it's good for them to get all their emotions out there sometimes. So it could be sad at times, but hopefully we'll learn a lot. But this is a topic where I think a lot of people got introduced to conspiracies from 9/11 in the immediate aftermath. I think this was one of the most, it was a very visible event, obviously, because it all played out on live TV. And then in the aftermath of it, a ton of people saw like the Loose Change movie, and they started exploring other things about it. It's been a subject of hot debate. And I think what has actually happened is like the Loose Change stuff has detracted from a lot of legitimate questions that people have about 9/11. I guess it's like the fucked up conspiracies have kind of made it harder to question the official story and the official narrative behind 9/11 because everyone's like, oh, you're a truther. Like some people think that there were no planes.
Yeah, that was a big one. That the planes weren't planes, but missiles that had holographs around them projecting that they were planes, which is just ridiculous. But I watched 2 hours of footage from the first footage ever found, which is actually a crazy story. There was a French filmmaker who was following FDNY firefighters that day. They were doing a day in the life of FDNY firefighters, and they had the only footage of the first plane hitting the first tower. But what's crazy about that is I watched this whole compilation of lined up footage from the 2 hours from when that first plane hit to when the second tower collapsed.
Yeah.
And what was, I don't want to say it was fascinating, but one of the most things that affected me while watching this 2 hours of footage was the narrative of what everyone thought. And this is between news channels and bystanders who are just whipping out their camcorders. In that when the first plane hit, everyone was like, oh my God, this is a terrible accident. Like how like this is a quote, but like, how did he not see the tower? Like was the pilot, do we know if the pilot was all okay? And then that's one of the things that like everybody thought when that happened. It's like, this has got to be a bad, I think that's what George Bush thought when he first got told of the first plane hitting the tower. I think his reaction was like, what a shitty pilot. Like that's kind of what everybody thought. And it's such a different world back then than it is now because you didn't have people with cell phone cameras. There were maybe some of like a few cell phones had video cameras on them, but for the most part they were real shitty and you couldn't use them. Maybe a couple people had digital cameras, some people had camcorders, but yeah, that's the only footage is that French documentary. And besides that, and then afterwards, everybody started like pointing their news cameras at the tower, watching the fire. And then no one thought. So then the craziest thing was the change in the emotion in a lot of these videos when the second tower gets hit with a different plane was one of the most heart-wrenching things I ever saw because the change of the fear that when people were like, that guy just did that on purpose. And everyone around it, like making the connection that this was all on purpose. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And the fact that, like, in the moment, they didn't know how many more planes were coming. They didn't know what was going on. And that was terrifying. Like, watching the videos, like, seeing just the people, the attitude of the people, the crowds, movement, and then
We had I was in third period, I remember, and the principal got on the loudspeaker, was like, "Hey, 2 planes have just hit the World Trade Center," and then we turned on the TV that was in the room, and then in that moment when you realize that, like, yeah, there's an attack going on, everybody was just like, "Okay, I guess we're going to be at war for the next 10 years." Like it just like flew over the room. Everyone kind of realized, "Oh shit, we're in a war right now," and we hadn't been in a war in America really since, Vietnam, kind of. But in that moment, it's like, I guess you could say Desert Storm, but that was mostly like we went in, we went out, job done.
that was the first thought.
We thought that in third period. Yeah, I was talking to a lot of people. I still remember. We're like, we're basically at war right now.
Who did you guys think you were fighting?
Didn't know, but just knew that this was like a massive attack, and so it's like, okay, I think our country is just gonna be at war now.
Well-
What grade were you in?
10th grade
Also,
or 9th grade.
did you have a different perspective on it because you were so close to DC? Like, did you think you were next?
Yeah, so when they announced that the planes had hit the Twin Towers, and our principal didn't say anything about the Pentagon. But then once we found out that the Pentagon got hit too, then everybody started freaking out because a lot of people's parents worked at the Pentagon. Either they were in the military, they were a contractor that spent time at the Pentagon. So then everybody just flipped out, was trying to get in touch with their families. They couldn't because we didn't have cell phones. You weren't allowed to, well, we did have cell phones, but you weren't allowed to have cell phones in school. It was like a rule. Couldn't have it in your locker, couldn't have it in your backpack. They changed those rules right after that.
Right.
But yeah, people started freaking out. Then people's parents came in and started taking their kids out of class. Especially people who were in the military, they would come in and be like, okay, we're safe for now, but let's get you out of school and let's just kind of ride this out, because nobody knew where it was going to go. After that second plane hit, everybody thought that they were a target. It was like, oh, well, they might be, flying a plane at the Capitol, which it turns out they might have been. They were flying one at the White House. There were bomb threats called in all over. And it was panic and chaos because you didn't know what was going to happen next. Arian, do you remember where you were when all this happened?
Yeah, I think I was in 9th grade, I believe. And I think I was we was in class, and I think our teacher, I think we had some kind of news footage or something. We had a TV pull up. And he pulled up a TV, see what was going on. I was at that time I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And we didn't have those kind of discussions. Like we were like, oh, we're at war. We were just like, everybody was just confused and like, what the fuck is going on? Nobody really knew what was going on. And then my mom came and got me. So everybody's parents started pulling me out of class. But it's basically just like an excuse, honestly, because like nobody thought they was gonna hit Albuquerque, New Mexico. So like, no, we were like, we don't think we're gonna get hit, but they was like, we just don't know what's going on. So, but there is a I think there's a nuclear shelter, and not shelter, nuclear establishment. I don't know what the fuck it's called.
Plant?
Place where nuclear plant. There you go. in Albuquerque, in the mountains, there's like a theory. I don't know if there is or not, and I know in Los Alamos there actually is. And so they're like, maybe they want to hit one of the nuke sites, and so excuse me, they started pulling all the kids out of class, and I remember it was just wild. And my dad was kind of conspiracy back then. He was like, probably the government, yada yada. So like, all these different things kind of like. So I didn't really know what to think, and I wasn't really that invested in it because I didn't really know what was going on. I was young, 13, 14 years old.
It was very confusing because like hindsight gives you the ability to look back on everything and you know exactly what happened and how it panned out and what was an overreaction, what wasn't. But at the time, like people would not have been surprised if a nuclear weapon went off. Like if that was like the next report that, oh, Seattle just got bombed. Sorry, Seattle, that was a big ricochet shot if you're listening right now. But anything was in play at that point because it was crazy watching it all unfold like that. And so Billy, what else have you been learning watching the footage?
Well, I mean, for my family, we were living in the city at the time, and I got pulled out of preschool, or I think it was like some sort of daycare. And my mom was walking me home, and she had glasses on, and she was crying. She's told this story to me. I don't remember this. And she was crying, but she didn't want to show me that I was crying. And we were walking down an avenue, and up the avenues were all these people walking with debris on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what's going on? And my mom told me that it was a early Halloween parade, and it was people dressed up. And then we just hid in the basement of the apartment building we were in. And that's like, and then my dad was outside of the city, and my grandfather was NYPD, and my dad was working outside of the city and was trying to get back into the city, but they were shutting down everything.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad went and grabbed my grandfather's badge, because my grandfather lived outside the city in Yonkers, and grabbed his badge and used it. Basically, like, he was just trying to get to his kids, but he pretended to be a police officer to get through the roadblocks.
Smart.
To get to me.
I just remembered I was a junior, not a sophomore. 2001 would have been my junior year.
Yeah.
And I distinctly remember, like, going into school. I don't know if school was closed the next day. It might have been closed the next day. But the next day that we were going into school, I was listening to the radio. And it's weird how when something happens, when like a big tragedy like that happens, people just call into the morning shows all the time and just explain what they saw happened. So there were like 2 or 3 very popular radio shows. Elliot in the Morning was one that I used to listen to in DC. And it was like, you know, your typical morning show. They were very funny. They just like fucked around a lot. And but on days like that, they turn into like a very serious, like important public, like, clearinghouse of information. So the next day was just filled with people calling in, just like crying, talking about what they saw, because a bunch of people on their commute saw the plane fly over. I think it was 295 in DC and hit the Pentagon. Like, a ton of people saw that, and it was just people explaining what they saw, what they were afraid about. And there was a ton of fear afterwards, because going back to that uncertainty, you're like, okay, what's our reaction going to be? Who did this? I remember the first, like, on 9/11, some of the news stations were saying probably bin Laden. But then it was a thing of, okay, what are we going to do about it? When is this going to happen? What's the impact going to be? How is my life going to be changed by this? And then you get a little bit older and you go back and you realize there were a ton of questions that probably should have been asked in those moments right after 9/11 that weren't asked. And we're still, like, trying to get to the bottom of them. I actually saw that, we can get into this in a little bit, but there's a lawsuit against the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
That's been going on, and they've been trying to get the 28 pages declassified from the 9/11 report. And it's been held up several times by the United States government.
Yeah.
Which is really strange.
I've focused a lot of my research on debunking a lot of stuff on what happened that day, not who did it, what did it, but just a lot of the events in the day. Like, for example, there was a myth that a Budweiser employee was delivering Budweiser and went to a store and saw, like, Muslims celebrating the towers going down. And then, like, this was something that went, like, in an email chain back then viral. And
yeah,
it was in, like, somewhere in North Carolina, but then he decided to pull all the Budweiser products from the shelves and didn't give them delivery because they were celebrating, which was debunked. All those stories of people celebrating what was happening have been debunked. Like, I think Trump said that
the email forwards, that was the those got hot back in the day.
Yeah.
You knew that you were about to open up some fire when it was like forward.
Yeah.
Obama, Kenya, forward. Those were, email forwards. That was like the first social media, really. I would actually say, like, chain letters. You guys are probably too young to know.
No. They, in middle school, forward this and your crush will ask you out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or forward this or you will
Have
get
bad
7
luck.
years of bad luck.
Yeah.
First fake news.
All right, so Billy, let's get through some Billy debunking.
One of the first things that I heard growing up was a lot of fire department and police officers who were there at Ground Zero when the towers were going down, heard a bunch of explosions. And there's even an example of let me send you the link of a security officer at the towers who was front and center, and he helped evacuate a lot of people out. And he heard explosions coming from the tower. But what I found out is that reading about what happened, a lot of those explosions on the ground floor that happened right before the tower collapsed were were from elevators falling down elevator shafts because the pulley system they operated on had snapped from the fire, and they were crashing at the bottom and all simultaneously, which makes sense. Like, what's more likely, that there were a bunch of explosives at the bottom of the tower, or, like what happened to the elevators in that instance? And it would make sense. They were all falling and crashing and causing like big loud bangs. I mean, when it comes to the crazy jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams, yes, like that is correct. Jet fuel might not melt steel beams, but it sure as hell will bend steel beams. I mean, like that's something like the structural integrity of steel definitely gets affected by heat. I mean, think about blacksmithing in the fires, and a blacksmith isn't that hot comparatively, and to destroy the structural integrity of the tower. Watching it, I watched those videos, seeing how the towers went down, and I myself was like, how the hell could that happen? I looked up, like, my first reaction was that does not look like possible. Like, how did that happen? But reading about the situations, the basically huge furnace that occurred on the floor that those planes went into, and people who talk about the fire plumes being impossible to be just a plane. Like, there's lots of plane crashes that happen and those plumes don't occur. Like, those fire plumes occur during car crashes too, depending on how much gasoline's in the car and where it gets hit.
Yeah, all the flames they're also being contained in an area the size of the building,
right,
not allowed to spread out over the course of like a field where a plane crash might occur.
Right.
But yeah, so the Loose Change movie that came out after 9/11, I think a lot of people have probably seen that. Have you seen that, Billy?
No, I actually haven't.
The dude that made Loose Change is also trying to move on from it. He's trying to be like, yeah, can we act like I didn't do that movie, please?
Yeah.
He's like a little bit ashamed of it, I think.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's some article that I was reading about the guy, but their big premise was, okay, yeah, jet fuel does not melt steel beams, and they've done so many experiments, and it buckles them, and when you have that much weight on top of the steel beams that presses down on it, it can collapse. Also, something that if you look at, if we can all agree, a lot of the older skyscrapers like the Empire State Building were much more expensive and built with higher quality materials because in order to, like, for example, the pyramids, right, last forever. But if you like look at new construction, like even 70s construction, 80s construction, the Twin Towers were built in the 70s. It's a lot flimsier construction. Like, it's not like, if you look at the plans for the Empire State Building, it is much different than the construct of the World Trade Center because they built it a lot more efficient with less materials to maximize profits. And like, there's much less mass, but way better engineering that goes into like these more advanced new skyscrapers. But they didn't take into account like a huge fire occurring with an accelerant that not only burnt up all the office supplies and wooden office chairs and everything, but had tons of jet fuel. Yeah. So I watched, when Loose Change came out, I watched it, and I thought it was interesting that it doesn't really give an explanation for what they think happened. It was just like, hey, this is kind of weird. This is kind of weird. They found a bunch of inconsistencies. So they said, like, okay, we don't think that the buildings can collapse. They said, oh, I don't think that Flight 93 actually crashed in that field. I think they said that there was a plane that took off, Flight 93 took off and then landed, I want to say in Cleveland or Cincinnati. And then they took all the passengers off the plane and killed them, and then flew an empty plane into the field or some bullshit like that. It made no sense. Basically, they were saying they were looking at flight log activities and coming up with inconsistencies and saying like, oh, this is what we think could have happened. But they never actually came out and said their theory on what did happen that day.
The one that crashed in Pennsylvania is where they found the passports from the hijackers, right?
I think they found some passports in New York.
That one's a little sketchy. That one is one that doesn't make sense to me, but like they couldn't find the black box, but they found the passports.
Did they not find? I think they did find the black box. Didn't they?
They couldn't recover it. It was too damaged.
The passports of Zayed Jarrah and Saeed Al-Ghamdi were found at the crash site of United Airlines Flight 93 in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
There could have been an element of right after the crash, like we got to pin this on someone quick to show decisive action from the intelligence community because of what a large, fuck up in the, like,
from the FBI?
Yeah, from not sort of detecting something like this from happening. I don't know about that. All I'm saying is like debunking the structural myths around it. The collapse of the first tower. Also there's some pretty interesting financial theories about it. Especially talking about Silverstein, who insured like just months before 9/11, the World Trade Center's lease was sold to Larry Silverstein. Silverstein took an insurance plan that fortuitously covered terrorism. After 9/11, Silverstein took the insurance company to court, claiming he should be paid double because there's 2 attacks. He won and was awarded $4.5 billion. So that amount like seems like a lot, but that the terrorist attack has in the new building has never made money. Like the financial impact of 9/11 is like that 4.5 billion did not cover any costs. The cleanup, the new building being constructed, the profitability of the new building. I think the cap rate on the new building is like pretty small, which means that it's only 90% occupied. Mm-hmm. And a building like that should have way higher occupancy, be doing serious leases and like getting tons of money. But then again, no one wants to, like, it definitely was a financial impact.
You're telling me it's not a financially sound business model to take out insurance on your building and then destroy your building.
It's not like it was a gigantic arson, basically.
Right. It's not like you burned down your bar to collect the insurance money.
Like this was such a mess that none of the financial impacts could have been done. And then there was like the Silverstein one is a big contributor to, oh man, they did this on purpose.
Yeah, let's just say hypothetically, do you think that if you were to ask most people, I'll give you $1 billion, but 3,000 strangers have to die, do you think people would say yes to that proposition?
Most people?
Yeah. What if there was just a button?
Say, yeah. I wouldn't personally say yes, but I think people would say yes.
What if there's a button that you had, Big T? The 3,000 people dead button. And when you pressed it, a nice clean $1 billion bill came out.
I would not do that. I think there are a lot of people who would.
Mm-hmm.
Also, remember the person who the button was given to. Let's say that this person the button was given to was in very close proximity to these 3,000 people.
Yeah, that knew these 3,000 people.
Like this isn't like 3,000 people across the world. This is 3,000 people who live in your backyard.
Yeah, I know. It was just like a thought experiment to do.
Yeah.
I wonder.
I just don't put it past anybody, honestly, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say it's like 50-50.
I'm a pessimist, though.
Not for me. I think 50% of people would press that button.
So this is the math to back this up. So he was awarded $4.5 billion in insurance claims. The new building, selling the building, everything. There was an estimated cost at $9 billion. So the court, it was a necessity to get that money to help with the rebuild, but no one was turning a profit from any of this.
Right.
Silverstein had obligations to lenders and co-investors that there was a lot of people to get paid off. He suffered greatly from this. And I think there was a couple bankruptcies done because of it. Yeah, in his lease payments, he still had lease payments to pay of $10 million per month to the Port Authority for a basic like ground zero.
Okay.
Someone was paying for the rubble.
Okay, and also if you dig like one level deeper to this, you're saying that the guy that owned the building took out a lease knowing that the building was going to be destroyed. So took out insurance knowing that the building was going to be destroyed. So he would have had to have advanced knowledge of the planes hitting his building. And also maybe he would have put thermite in the building. Like all this goes. And then there's a bunch of people that he would have had to hire to put explosives in the building.
Right. And then there's the big
Seems
one.
like the dude that owns the World Trade Center probably doesn't have the connections to pull all that off.
And know the science of the accelerants, the exact situation of the accelerants, the heat, the knowing that where the plane hit would cause it to go down. Like what if the plane hit higher, like to that the whole controlling which floor the plane hit, because if the plane hit the top floor, the fire would burn up.
Yeah.
And then probably helicopters would come and contain it, but it wouldn't have the collapsing effect of hitting. I mean, you could argue they knew where to aim and the whole plan, but the amount of specifics that had to happen were
I don't think Al Qaeda even knew that the towers were going to collapse.
No one knew.
Yeah.
I mean, and also the big one is the World Trade Center was attempted to be bombed in 1993, I think. This is the one in the Biggie song that he talks about, going to blow up like the World Trade. And then everyone's like, oh my God, Biggie knew about 9/11.
Yeah.
But Biggie was dead before 9/11. But it was like, no.
There was a pretty massive attack on,
Yeah, before. So when this guy bought the building, he was probably like, hey, this thing got attacked before. Might as well get insured for getting attacked again.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why people got flood insurance after Sandy.
Okay. All right. So the insurance, I think Billy's debunked that.
There was a new one about.
Real quick, the passport thing. I think that's the only thing to me where I'm like, it's just weird.
Yeah, me too.
You know what I mean? I don't ascribe any kind of intent to it, but
yeah.
What was it? Was it 3 out of the 4 of them have been discovered or something like that? 3 out of 4.
Hang on one second. They discovered 4. 2 were in Pennsylvania. 1, somebody found at Ground Zero and handed to an NYPD officer.
And that's the one to me. The other one.
And a 4th
maybe,
was recovered from luggage that did not make it from a Portland flight to Boston.
Right. That one makes sense. And maybe even the Flight 93 where a whole bunch of debris was lost because the plane didn't explode like that. But to find a passport on the ground by a passerby and then that passerby pick it up and have the wherewithal to give it to the police, that's the shit that's giving me like... I honestly don't believe that. I don't think that it's some like evil government cover up. But I do think maybe it's bullshit.
I think
I really do.
I think they definitely used it to try to get a warrant on whoever they faked the passport. Just like
probable
I'm
cause.
thinking like that, something like that, or something like
dirty.
They were just trying to cover themselves and say, "Oh, look, we're doing detective work. Look what we found." That type shit. But to say that a passport randomly I'm
jet
not buying
fuel
that
doesn't burn passports.
Yeah. Are they saying that like the plane hit the building and then a passport from somebody's luggage on the plane flew out of a window intact, and then landed on the ground, and then a passerby
passport.
and it's
went
like,
through.
oh, look at this, officer, I've got a clue. You know, like that's it does sound like a fucking detective novel, right?
I'm not buying that bullshit.
I could see
I'm
that
just not
plan,
buying
too.
it.
Also,
I'm not buying it.
there was a big claim that there was 60 times the puts put on United and American Airlines before the day before the towers hit. Yes, there was a ton of puts put on, being that they were trying to short the stocks. There was a bunch, but those puts were taken as a hedge on a large investment made into those companies. So that's like, large, what's the word? Institutional trading. They usually like insure their bets basically with a hedge. So that like, yes, the puts worked and money was made, but that money just covered losses from them buying the stock on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So that debunked. Yeah. So, I mean, getting to the Pentagon, a lot of people were like, how is there no footage of the plane hitting the Pentagon? There is.
It is weird though, that because you tend to look at things through the lens of the day that we live in now.
Yeah.
And there, cameras everywhere. Back then there weren't cameras everywhere. There is some footage from a gas station that's like across the street, but it's, gas station security cameras. They're not shooting 60 frames per second. So you can barely see the plane hit, but there is footage that exists. It's just not high quality footage.
Also, it's kind of like if you're the Pentagon and you have 24/7 security and lookout, like why do we need security cameras?
Yeah.
And it's heavily fenced in.
That one, I personally know people that saw the plane fly over 295.
I also know people who lived in Washington, D.C. and saw the plane, but 9/11 is like...
Strictly from a pilot performance critique, they say that dude could not have pulled off that move where it did a big descending loop to go and aim directly at the Pentagon. It was like, it's pretty crazy that he did pull that off as somebody that didn't have any piloting experience. It's not easy to do. It's possible. It's definitely possible to do. But the people that are saying like, oh, even trained airline pilots couldn't do it, they could. But for a first-time pilot, the dude, it's unreal that it is kind of crazy that he was able to pull that off.
But also look at Sky King, as they call him, the guy who hijacked the plane in, was it Portland?
Yeah, Seattle, I think.
Seattle also did crazy maneuvers from just like, PFT, do you think you could hop in a plane as a flight simulator guy?
I could fly the plane. I could not take off or land, much less like the guys that were training in Arizona.
Huh.
But no, I think that, anyone can fly a plane. Dude, it's just like you grab the sticks and then you aim.
I'm going to be honest. I think it's like the one place where I like eat the trash on the conspiracy theories is I could totally imagine the flight in Pennsylvania getting shot down.
Yeah, I could also.
Because look, 3 planes hit and you're the Air Force.
Well, also they were going to. That was the plan, was to take the plane down because they had every indication it was going at the Capitol or at the White House, one of the two.
Yeah.
And so they had orders to take the plane out, and they said that the passengers overpowered people, which both things could have happened.
Right.
Like there's definitely there's a lot of like answering machine recordings and call logs that show the people on the plane getting ready to start like rebelling against the hijackers. That could have happened, and there also could have been something else that took the plane out. I think it's definitely a possibility because they weren't going to let that plane get back to DC.
That sounds like a terrible railroad conundrum.
Oh, the trolley problem?
Yeah, trolley problem, where it's like
the railroad conundrum.
Yeah, synonyms.
Yeah,
but like, do we? Because imagine if there's someone on the plane, like talking and being like, "Hey, we just took the pilots out. We got recontrol of the plane. Like, can you trust that? Can you, put those people's lives, the risk, like the math of it, like 2,000 more lives or just these 30 people on the plane?"
Yeah.
I mean, that sucks. I mean, it sucks to think about, but when you're making large scale national security stuff, like they're definitely putting that into
So
account.
when they
Dick Cheney even actually said that, that if they shoot down the plane if it was going towards the Capitol.
Yeah, they had orders to take the plane out. What's crazy is, and this is the official story, and this is all kind of weird, so I don't know how much of this to believe or not, but when they scrambled the jets to take him out, the pilot, there was a female pilot that was in charge of taking the plane out, and she took off without any missiles on her plane.
Yeah,
they didn't have time to like arm the missiles, which is weird because the entire premise behind having this quick strike or quick intercept capability is to be able to intercept planes and shoot them down. That's what the military trains for. And they didn't have a plane that had any missiles ready to go on it. So they said they sent her up, and her mission was to
flip the wing,
bump it. Yeah, bump it.
I think she said that she was only going to have one shot at it, so she was going to go into the cockpit. I think that's what she was saying, because that would ensure taking the plane out if you sever the control systems in the cockpit. Whereas if you hit a wing and you were just a little bit off, the plane could potentially still fly a little bit if it had most of that wing still intact. But yeah, she said that she didn't have any missiles, so her mission was going to be just
also
crash into
plausible deniability. So I mean, that's the one where I like. This one has been a lot. The Vegas shooting scrambled my brain because there hasn't been 20 years of studies on it, and no one's really. There hasn't been a full commission and people who have dedicated years to figuring these things out.
Mm-hmm.
But the next big one is Tower 7. There was a third tower that went down that everyone's like, what happened to the SEC? That's where all the SEC records were, and they got destroyed. Like that's where probably all the SEC corruption was destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, even if this whole thing was orchestrated, like, you know, like making sure that the missing money from the Pentagon was gone, you know, getting rid of all the Wall Street corruption in Building 7, they really, the amount of things accomplished by this, by like the super conspiratorial idea is way way too successful for something that complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Building 7 was a tower that the BBC reported to have been destroyed, to have fallen, crumpled to the ground while a reporter was standing in front of it. And you can see in the background that had to do with a delay in broadcasting. There was another fire. So watching the videos, and if anyone thinks the Building 7 thing is true and it was definitely bombs to get rid of records, go watch some of the videos of what it looked like on the street after the towers got hit.
Yeah.
Like debris falling, like people running with cameras and hiding under cars because big chunks of concrete were falling from the sky, and burning material. Like it's actually surprising more buildings around Ground Zero didn't get destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy that only one did, and the towers fell as they did. And yes, I know it looks like a controlled demolition, some people would say, but the first tower sort of, there was a large park almost around the towers.
Yeah.
That kind of gave it some leeway.
Let's just say hypothetically it was brought down using a controlled demolition. Building 7 was.
Yeah.
They probably want to do that pretty close to when the other buildings came down, right? They wouldn't want to wait and then be like, oh, whoops, we forgot to hit the button on this one. Yeah, fuck it. Let's just hit it even though it's been hours.
Yeah.
I don't think that they would want to disguise it a little bit more.
And probably wait until the area was evacuated.
Yeah, so when did Building 7 go down?
Building 7, let me pull up the timeline. Building 7, the fire had been burning in there for a while. It started. The thing is, no one knew it was burning because all the buildings got evacuated.
Yeah.
As soon as the first plane hit, I think like the fire department activated everybody's fire systems.
Mm-hmm.
So all those buildings got evacuated before, so no one knew that debris had gone into Building 7 and a fire had started. So when it went down, it had been burning for hours. And if in something I saw recently about the Ukrainian war was that the biggest destruction is fire in a war zone, because in a war zone there's no fire department. So when a building sort of like a grenade or a small piece of incendiary object goes into a house and like lights up a drape,
Mm-hmm.
and like stuff catches on fire, there's no fire department to call, so the fires rip out of control. And in that moment, no one knew there was a fire in Building 7. The fire department was much more preoccupied with the bigger building that they knew people were still in. And it's not, honestly, like, it is the bravery of those firefighters to walk up the World Trade Center and try to put out that fire
Mm-hmm.
on like the top, like I don't even remember how many floors up on the tower, and
Like 70
no
to 80
elevators,
probably.
and just march up that thing. And I mean, it's like,
Dude, if you've ever even just been on a Stairmaster and tried to climb like 20 stories, at once with, no weight on your back or anything like that. It's insanely difficult what they had to do to go up there.
And to still do it, even though like it might have been like a lot of them knew it was probably a suicide mission, but they saw people that needed rescuing.
Yeah.
I
want to get into, before we get large and Annie in here, I want to get into one conspiracy that I actually believe in
Which
this. Well, it's become more and more talked about these days, but the involvement of the Saudi government
yeah.
in 9/11. So, well, first of all, the FBI just fucked everything up. Like this is the biggest FBI fuck up maybe of all time, because they had information well before. It was in the fucking presidential briefing saying Bin Laden's going to attack in the United States. He's trying to use domestic airlines. So there was all this information out there. The FBI knew about plans to use airlines as far back as 1995. They got tipped off to the flight school down in Arizona, where some of the hijackers were on there, and they were like, yeah, we want to fly. We want to learn how to fly. We don't care about takeoff. We don't care about landing. And so the FBI got called. They did a bullshit investigation, which went nowhere. There was also this. I hadn't really looked into this until very recently, but I think it was back in 2000. November 1999. There were two employees of the government of Saudi Arabia, a guy named Kudain and a guy named Shalawi, that worked for the Saudi government. One of them was employed at the Ministry of Islamic Affairs, and they got on an America West flight to Washington. And on this November 1999 flight, they tried multiple times to gain access to the cockpit of the plane in an attempt to test flight deck security in advance of the hijackings. They pretty much did the thing where like a kid goes up to the cockpit and was like, hey, can my son see your cockpit? He loves planes. They did that several times over the course of the flight, tried to break into the cockpit. Another time they asked where the bathroom was. The flight attendants were like, it's still in the back of the plane. And then they tried to get into the front of the plane and tried on two more occasions to get into the cockpit. And it created such a disturbance on this flight. Like they were obviously doing it for fucked up reasons, that the pilot requested an emergency landing. They had to land the plane early. On the ground, they got handcuffed. They got taken into custody. The FBI questioned them. By the way, these are two employees of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The FBI questioned them and decided not to pursue prosecution on them. And their airline tickets were paid for by the Saudi embassy on that day. It was a dry run. It's been known as the dry run for 9/11, where they're testing out the defenses. And as we've seen, like 15 of 19 people were Saudi Arabian. And the Saudi government, like there's so many people inside Saudi Arabia that hate the United States for various reasons. And it goes back years and years and years, probably all the way to like FDR or right before FDR.
Sykes-Picot.
What's that?
Sykes-Picot.
What's that?
I think that's the treaty that chopped up the Middle East.
Okay, yeah. Probably it has something to do with that. It has a lot to do with the U.S. government offering security to Saudi Arabia in exchange for a taste of the oil and preferred prices on oil. And that goes back to like FDR's days and even a little bit before. And there are a lot of people in Saudi Arabia that don't think that the United States should be in Saudi Arabia. Actually, they think that it's against their entire religion for the United States to be in Saudi Arabia. And they've hated us. They will hate us for a long time. They hated us for a long time before that. And there are people inside the government that feel that same way. And Bin Laden he's Saudi. He's a Saudi national. He's since been excommunicated before he died. And there are still people that are involved in the royal family that are sympathetic to his causes. And so I think that what you've seen after the 9/11 attacks with the lawsuits against Saudi Arabia that have been trying to be filed, what happened was the United States government was asked by Saudi Arabia to not change the law to allow foreign governments to be sued for terrorist attacks. The Saudi government said, please don't allow this law to be changed. If they do, we will respond with what amount to economic sanctions, where they'd raise the rates of oil, then they'd pull all the financial levers that they have in their disposal. So they were essentially blackmailing Obama in the United States to not change this law because it would fuck them up. And then, of course, there were the 27, 28 pages that were redacted because they named people from Saudi Arabia and people in the government that had their hands in either providing tactical or more likely financial support to, like, the people that were involved in the attack. Their places were bought and paid for in certain circumstances by employees of the government of Saudi Arabia. Like, they're the places that they rented. So I don't think it's the policy of, like, the ruling family of Saudi Arabia who said, okay, we're going to attack the United States. But I think that there are a lot of very powerful, very, very rich people in Saudi Arabia that hate the United States and definitely helped it get carried out. And then afterwards, they use their financial power in the United States to turn the investigation and put it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the conspiracy that I actually do think and believe in 100%.
I mean, I don't think the hijackers even knew the buildings would go down. I don't think anyone knew the perfect storm that would happen that day.
Right.
Which is nuts.
Yep.
Yeah, there's no way to tell.
Well, actually, maybe they did know because they created like, they're big in petroleum.
I don't think they knew. I don't think anybody knew. And then it just pisses me off sometimes when you think, like, I'm going back in time to 2003 and like the start of the Iraq War, and how George Bush and Dick Cheney were like, yeah, Iraq, they helped plan this out. It's like, dude, if you had the lengths that they went to try to justify the Iraq War by saying there was, like, one official from Iraq that may have met with somebody that was helping out the hijackers, and that ended up being totally bogus too. But that's what they went with to try to justify Iraq, when you had 10 times the evidence of that, of high-level officials from Saudi Arabia actually doing these things and just didn't do shit about it. Just kind of, like, let it fly. That pissed me off. And I think most people with a brain back then could have told you, like, this is not the direction we should be going in. That's what really makes me mad, because, like, obviously I am we've talked about this on the show. I tend to be more of a pacifist because I'm a Quaker. But if you get attacked and, like, 3,000 people die, you have to defend yourself, right? I know that doesn't make me the best Quaker in the world, but that's, like, my natural reaction. It's like, yeah, fuck them. Let's get them. But then to, like, just obviously fuck everything up and to point at somebody that you wanted to kill beforehand, blame it on Hussein, and just completely take advantage of American people, I think. Like, they took advantage of the 3,000 people that died to start this war that he wanted to carry out anyway. It's the biggest foreign policy mistake, I think, of my lifetime.
Easily. Yeah.
I don't think that there's a close second either. Big T.
Because that ended up being responsible for so many, not just, American lives, but, Iraqi lives. That's like almost a million.
A million.
Something like that.
Yeah. PFT Alex Jones handshake on that one. That video that Billy sent over earlier.
Yeah.
People forget that Alex Jones went on The View.
Yeah, Google it if you haven't. It's hilarious because he's supposed to be on there talking about Charlie Sheen, but he just starts going off on a tangent. It's just like you get the women on The View are just like, what's going on?
They had no idea who Alex
Like,
Jones was or why he was there.
Yeah, Whoopi Goldberg's like, whoa, what are we doing?
Yeah, and then he was like,
slow down.
Yeah,
they were talking about Charlie Sheen's mental health, and then all of a sudden Alex Jones is like, 1 million dead Iraqis, investigate it. And I'm like, yes, Alex, yes.
he's not
Preach, dude.
Charlie Sheen isn't they're treating him like an evil man with an evil soul, but he didn't kill 100,000 Iraqis.
We don't really talk about a million people died in Iraq. 1 million people died.
Well, I think that's what's so significant about this, right? Because that was the first time on American soil, aside from Pearl Harbor, but that was kind of like out of sight, out of mind because it was on the mainland, right? So I think Pearl Harbor was the closest thing, like, where we saw an attack on U.S. soil, and we felt so. I mean, to this day, we're like, never forget, right? 9/11.
Well, so why
Like,
are you
that
in the
happens-
state then?
What's that?
I don't even think Hawaii
What?
was a state
Did
at
it-
that
Did
time.
No,
it,
no,
did it
yeah.
happen? It happened in Hawaii, did it not?
Yeah,
Or-
but
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
weren't. They weren't a state.
Were they not?
Oh, well,
Yeah.
it was a U.S. base.
Right.
at
But
that
I'm
time.
just saying, like,
I don't
even
know.
That's the crazy part.
yes, you're correct. I'm just saying, even back then, like that wasn't even really.
You're right. 1959 is when Hawaii became a state. I didn't
Yeah,
realize that.
right.
But yeah. The point stands though.
Yeah, the point is like, so that was the first time like we saw and really felt the implications of foreign intervention in our day-to-day life, because it's always out of sight, out of mind. You hear about drone strikes, you hear about stuff, but like this shit happens overseas all the time. Like all the time. Like I was reading this one thing, and these kids, they were interviewing these kids, and they were talking about how they pray for overcast because then the drones, they can't fly drones in cloudy weather. And I'm like, just the thought of that, hearing kids say that is crazy. And so like, I'm not trying to minimize what had happened on 9/11, but I think if Americans had a broader sense of like a global community and understanding like this shit happens in other places, like a lot, we would have more empathy and we would lean more towards diplomacy, because that is an insight. Like we don't think about foreign policy in our day-to-day lives. America is the center of the universe in our eyes.
Yeah.
But that is a big part of, and we're so isolated too. Like we only have 2 countries bordering us, right? And we don't really fuck with Mexico like that. And Canada's fun to visit. But like over there, all those countries are like states here, right? Where we interact with our own states. They interact with entirely different countries and entirely different cultures. And and conflict, with policy and foreign policy is a part of their day-to-day lives. And I think if people just realize that more, they would be more empathetic. But alas, here we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's a different perspective to have entirely, because we're fortunate to grow up in a place where we don't fear for our lives, even though you have homeless people that are shoving big T on the street willy nilly, left and right.
Yep.
But you don't have an imminent threat of foreign terrorism hitting you. You sometimes, obviously, mass shooters, things like that. But that's unfortunately byproducts of the civilization that we're in over here in the United States. But yeah, it was like I hear a lot of people say like a loss of innocence on 9/11. I think that to a certain extent that's true, where we grow up in a bubble and we think that we're not going to get attacked by anything, and then all of a sudden that reality is shattered and you realize that the government can't protect you from everything, and it changes your whole perspective on things. But
I think another good point of that is when a lot of, it's like a rallying cry a lot of the times when people like, there was one point in time where this country was united, and that was around 9/11, and that's just not the case. Like I remember vividly, we had some really close friends who were I think it was Pakistani, and just anybody who was Arab at that time was fucked with at a very high rate, and their lives were miserable here because they were viewed as villainous. And that's the case in any kind of conflict globally that we're having with anybody. It's like when the Japanese internment camps, all of that stuff, it's always stereotyped and typecast into all these tropes that bring up all of these different feelings as Americans and what it even means to be an American. And so it's like I just hated that talking point, because for a lot of Americans it wasn't.
And
there's some rallying cry.
The people who got it the worst were the Sikhs, because who aren't even Muslim.
Mhm.
I remember in New York City, the Sikhs, if you don't know, they all wear turbans. It's part of their culture, and for a lot of people, most Muslims don't wear turbans who live in America. So the Sikhs were the victims of a lot of hate crimes, especially in New York, because there's a large Sikh population in New York. And admittedly, when you're very, very young and all you're seeing is like Osama bin Laden on TV, and he's the most evil man that you've ever comprehended, is like a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, you're like, oh my god, like is one of these, like, it's like what I'm trying to say, like, it's easy to make that digression because of that.
Yeah. It is. That's why it's important to talk to people and find out different experiences, because a lot of people would agree with like what Arian was saying earlier, that the country was united after 9/11, And I think some people felt united. Some people felt like, oh,
Sure.
I'm going to be nice to people because our country's under attack and things like that. But other people have very vastly different perspectives. And just because it's not like the majority opinion or what the majority sees, you hear some pretty fucked up things about people just getting beaten up, like just normal people going about their lives, getting fucked with and like attacked in certain circumstances. But
I mean, shit, it carried so long that it was a big talking point for like conservatives to Obama, right? They were like saying he was a Muslim, and like Muslim, any kind of Muslim connotation is also viewed as terrorist,
yeah,
and like that's a very dangerous distinction.
do you remember when everyone talks about that John McCain town hall when he stood up to the lady that was like calling Obama a Muslim and be like, look what our country used to be united. People don't realize that the lady was just like, I've heard he's a Muslim, and McCain's reaction was, no, he's a good, honest man. So he took like the accusation of being a Muslim as being like, wait, no, he's not a terrorist, you know?
Yeah.
And I think to a certain extent, because it's a Muslim country in Iraq that we did invade after this, using 9/11 as one of the main pretexts, we don't think of a million people being dead over there, and it's not like a huge tragedy to a lot of folks. But like, it's a fucking million dead people, innocent people for the most part, that would not have died if it wasn't for George Bush. And actually, you know, like I did a lot of reading right after 9/11 of what was happening behind the scenes in the Bush White House. And it was like, okay, so now I sided with Alex Jones earlier, me and Trump holding hands on this one. Fuck the Cheneys. Fuck the Cheney family till they die.
Yeah.
Dick Cheney, the day, like I think the day of 9/11, essentially said, find a connection to Iraq behind this, because I've been wanting to take out Iraq. So he strongly, even in this moment, was like telling the intelligence community, figure out how I know that Iraq was involved in this, find out what the connection is so that I can go after them. Like and I'm not standing Saddam Hussein, bad guy.
Yeah.
This is an anti-Saddam Hussein podcast. Probably shouldn't have killed a million people. If we're doing a railroad conundrum on Saddam Hussein, probably shouldn't have killed a million people to take that motherfucker out.
Railroad conundrum.
Yeah.
That's got to be a new segment on the show.
Railroad conundrum. Did Saudi Arabia? So a lot of conspiracy. I actually don't know this. I probably need to read up on it. Saudi Arabia did not like Iraq.
Correct.
Because of differing. Are they ideology? Is it the Shia?
They're like
Shia,
diametrically opposed. Yes.
Yeah. So do you think
they would never have helped each other? It was not.
Do you think they tried to frame Iraq?
I'm sure they didn't. I'm sure they got the fuck out of the way once George Bush started being like, I think this is Iraq. I think a lot of Saudi officials were like, yeah, I think you're right, George.
Yeah.
They do some dry snitching on him. Yeah, there's definitely connections behind Saudi Arabia, and what's complicated about Saudi Arabia is they kind of do have us by the balls, right? When it comes to energy policy, we can't our government can't completely we can't start a war with Saudi Arabia. That's the difference. Like, we can, if Iraq pisses us off, we can figure out a way to have a war with them and be there for the next 20 years fighting it, and go about our lives for the most part. When Saudi Arabia pisses us off, we can't invade them. That would be an international incident. It would spark World War III right off the bat, and then also we can't afford to lose our supply of energy that they give us. So they have us by the balls, which is why all this information came out after the fact about 9/11 and before the fact about 9/11, and our reaction was so disproportionate in what we chose to do, attacking other countries instead of it's like if you get fucked with, if somebody comes up to you and it's like a group of 4 guys and the big guy punches you in your face and you're like, that guy's going to kick my ass, but I think I could take his friend, and then you make up a reason to start the fight with his friend instead.
Oh, it's always, what do you like? What's so funny?
Yeah, that's actually a perfect analogy. What you think that was funny? I'll beat the shit out of you.
Yeah. I'm actually curious to hear Large's take on some of the things that, because I mean, I don't think anybody will ever really know all of the details, right? I think we have our best guesses and inferences, and but I'm interested to hear Large's take on some of the things that are like, come on, man. I'm not buying that official story as to why that took place. Because I've done a little bit of research on it. I'm not invested enough in it to stake a claim. But I just don't think that it was the U.S. government by and large. But I do think they do things to cover their tracks on their own fuck ups all the time. And so a lot of the stuff doesn't make sense to me, but it's just not that. I'm curious to see Large's take on it, because he's one, well read on the subject, two, was firsthand, and like he was he was probably what, 20s, 30s when this happened? 20s?
Let's see, 20 years ago. Yeah.
He would have been 30.
Yeah, I think he was early 30s.
Like 28. 28.
Yeah. And that's an entirely different perspective too, as to being, I was a high school kid, right? And so we're debating each other about what's going on, not knowing shit about shit. But like, you know, at 20s and 30s, you're a little bit more well versed than you are. And so like his experience, I'd like to
Also
see what he's talking about.
Talking about some crazy things coming out of it. The amount of people who faked being in the towers after the attack is ridiculous. Like a comedian faked that they'd been in the tower.
9/11 Kevin, right?
The guy from the league. What's his name?
Steve Renaz.
Oh, 9/11 Steve, yeah.
Raganazi or something. Yeah.
He was Kevin
He's
from
in the league?
Yeah, he was Kevin from the league.
Kevin. I just watched the movie.
He still has a job?
No.
Yeah, I think that came out after the league.
Yeah.
I just watched the movie that was Not Okay, where that it was kind of based off of people who pretended to be in the towers.
Yeah.
It was like the Paris attacks.
So the guy from the league, he was in New York when 9/11 happened, and people would always ask him, like, in showbiz, oh, you're from New York, what was 9/11 like? And his story gradually changed to just being in the city, to like being in the building and escaping after the plane hit. And then he I think Pete Davidson reached out to him, because Pete Davidson's dad was a firefighter who passed away, who was going up into the towers. And Pete reached out to, what's his name, Steve?
Yeah.
Reached out to Steve and was like, hey, like, that's crazy that you have that connection there. He tried to bond with him over it. And then Steve like wrote back like something very short and didn't really get into it. And so after the whole report came out, or after he admitted to faking it, Pete Davidson, I think he was on like the Howard Stern show.
I have the tweet up.
You have the tweet? Yeah.
It says, "It's okay at Steve Renazzi. People make mistakes. Can't wait to meet my dad for lunch later."
Yeah.
And his dad died in the tower.
Yeah. But I think he was on like the Howard Stern show, and he read all the DMs that he had with Steve beforehand. He was like, yeah, you know, at the time I thought it was weird that he wasn't like more responsive to me trying to bond with him over this shared traumatic experience. But he, like, you could tell that he felt bad in the situation and didn't want to continue his lie to Pete Davidson's face about where he was on 9/11. It was just, it's weird. Like, people that develop victim complexes because they don't have anything to actually
maybe he did it as
be
a
a victim
bit.
about.
Another one was your boy Trump. Did you ever see what he said? He was literally getting interviewed, and he was like, we had the tallest building until the World Trade Center went up. And this is like literally like behind the shit. And he's like, and it was the tallest building, but then the World Trade Center went up. And well, it's the tallest building now. It's
Yeah.
like, what the fuck is wrong with you, dog?
Yeah, it was the day of. I think they were asking him about what happened. He was like, "Well, yeah, I guess, you know, it's sad to say, but it is the tallest building now in Lower Manhattan." He tried to squeeze in a brag on 9/11.
He also claimed that he helped clear up like debris and rubble and stuff. And not as far as I have seen when I looked into it a while back. I hadn't seen any evidence of that, but that's a wild claim too.
Steve Buscemi is on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Former FDNY who then came out of retirement to help out. There's even some of our security guards who are former NYPD talk about how they were down there helping clean up.
Yeah, Steve
Have to-
Buscemi, he was working there for like months,
Yeah.
and he didn't want to do any press about it or anything.
Yeah.
Eventually, after enough people like asked him like, "Hey, can we just write about you?" He said, "Okay," but he was just down there like doing a job for a while, which is crazy. Like you learn a lot about people, I think, in situations like that. Big T, what you got? Any questions, commentary?
Really, the only, we mentioned conspiracies and stuff like that. The passports are the only thing that don't square with me. Finding one a mile away from ground zero and like just handing it to a detective, like the ones that they find in plane wreckage completely unharmed.
I think that sometimes you find stuff in plane crashes, though.
Sure. I would
randomly-
You've
imagine.
seen Lost?
Passport.
I would imagine that a passport would be
You know,
destroyed in a plane crash.
I guess I would.
One of the two.
I would just say like I don't know what you do find in plane crashes. It'd be interesting to find from somebody like, okay, if there's an international plane crash and there's 100 people on board, how many passports are we actually finding? If it's like one or two, then yeah, that's really weird.
You know
if it's
what?
Like
also
60 or 70.
This is another thing about it. They always tell you the safest safest part of a plane in the plane crash is the back, right? And so if the hijackers theoretically are in the front of the plane, I assume his passport was with him or on him. And so they say it's the safest on the back because that takes the most impact, that has the most friction. So you would think the stuff in the front, including the people and the paper, would disintegrate the fastest.
Yeah, I don't know about like the back being the safe in an impact like that. I think that the difference between the front and the back
in
are
general. I'm just saying in plane crashes. I'm
Yeah.
not sure about in that scenario. In that scenario, everybody died, but it's dog. The odds of that shit happening are just
3
extremely-
times
of a passport flying out of a plane in a building. I'm not buying that shit.
Okay,
I
so
would need to see more evidence as to how that shit happened.
I'm
I don't believe that shit.
so I'm watching an ISIS video right now
okay. God, all right.
of these French.
On what?
Billy's getting black flagged.
No, but this is so I looked up, do our passports fireproof? And then I found this video of French ISIS fighters trying to burn their French passports and failing. And it looks like it's kind of hard to burn a passport, low key. So that's
I've not looked into that.
yeah, because it was the only video of anyone I could find burning
But
passports.
is it them just like trying to light it with a match?
I mean, it's them in a fire, throwing it in a fire.
I think there's a different level of intensity from a fire pit or versus a plane crash.
yeah, especially I know.
But
I was just checking
I don't
out.
know,
I had to look up the fireproof ability of a
Right.
passport because passports are kind of weird.
Aren't they kind of like-
Let's say the passport survives the fire. It survives the plane crash. It survives the fire. It survives the crumbling of the building, and it flies out of the building and lands on a floor. Just so happens that a guy is walking by, picks it up, and says, maybe the police need this. Come on, dog. Come on. I would love to see because
No, I agree. I agree 100%.
That's wild, dog. That is wild.
There's some by the way, there's a ton of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that have been pushed by Muslim leaders. Ahmadinejad. I'm a dinner jacket.
I don't know how to.
That was the Saturday Night Live. I'm a dinner jacket.
I know that he's very active on Twitter.
He was pushing this theory that a bunch of Jewish people were called at work and told not to come in.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was like this number that 4,000 were missing. 4,000 Jews were missing from work, but that's actually from 4,000 Jews were unaccounted for in Lower Manhattan, and that was picked up by the Israeli Times, and that was published, but then in translation to Muslim channels. So that's
So they were saying like 4,000 Jewish people might have been killed
Yeah,
because they were
there's-
writing about Jewish people in New York City,
Yeah,
and then
missing.
that got translated as to being like 4,000 Jewish people just like mysteriously
disappeared.
left
and didn't
before
go.
9/11.
And
yeah.
a lot of those
You know what's-
theories have been pushed by nations that aren't friendly to Israel, but then they get picked up over here.
and just they find their ways into like anti-Semitic circles.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like when the attacks happened, don't know if you guys felt the same way, but my first thought was like 3,000 people. That seemed like it would have been a low number because those buildings everybody
Yeah.
thought were full. The biggest office building in the world, I think the Pentagon, right?
yeah.
And so before you got a scope of everything that happened, we saw, okay, the buildings collapsed. Probably a lot of people died that were not even in the buildings, but around them during the collapse. I think most people were thinking like, I don't know, 15 to 30,000 people might have died
Yeah.
that day. And a lot of people have died afterwards because of the inhalation and the health problems.
asbestos.
But 3,000 people in that, if you were to tell me that as it was happening, I would think that would be a very low estimate.
Right.
So there's a ton of anti-Semitic things that go into play, where they're saying some people say the Israeli government did have a hand in the attacks. Some people say the Israeli government and Mossad, their spy agency, had advanced warning of the attacks. I don't think that that's extremely difficult to believe, because our government had advanced knowledge of the attacks, and the Israeli spy agencies, they do what we do, except a lot of people would say better. They're better at anti-terrorism spying than we are. And so they probably had some of the same chatter that we had behind the scenes, and they probably fucked it up too. I don't think that this gets into like a big anti-Semitic conspiracy, but I think that if we had some knowledge behind the scenes and we fucked up the investigation, I'm pretty sure that Mossad had some idea and some like vague either sources, or they had a couple investigations that they did here or there. And they're also, by the way, if we have anything that we're investigating for terrorism and it involves Saudi Arabia or it involves a country in the Middle East, we're sharing that intelligence with them as well. So I think that goes hand in hand.
They've been fighting terrorism for their conception.
Yeah, we use their techniques now in airports.
That's a controversial statement.
What they consider terrorism.
Sure.
And let's specify, like, Bin Laden, he was a freedom fighter before he was a terrorist.
Yeah.
Like we funded Bin Laden.
Mm-hmm.
That's a sticky situation.
No, it's a fact.
No.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Israel as a.
It is. No, it's very, very complicated. The U.S.'s relationship with Israel is extremely complicated. It always has been.
Ooh, that should be an episode.
Israel?
Israel Palestine conflict.
Yeah. I mean, it's very, very complicated, and there's no side that is 100% in the right on it, and there's no side that's 100% in the wrong on it. I'll put it that way. And so a lot of times it comes down to the people that you know the closest, and the people that you've interacted with that influence which side you believe in that situation. But it's and that it comes into play a lot with not just Israel Palestine, but just Israel and our entire policy in the Middle East in general.
And honestly, some of our treatment of Israel in the Middle East inspired a lot of this hatred towards America.
For sure.
Like Sykes, it all dates back to Sykes-Picot, which was the post-World War I division of colonial lines with the Ottoman Empire, the collapse of it, Italy, England. It is a messy situation that should have
Well, Europe did all that shit, not just in the Middle East, but also Africa. They just basically took out a map and they drew straight lines horizontally, straight lines vertically. And they said, okay, well, forget about the fact that there's two tribes that have hated each other for the last 500 years that are now coexisting in the same country. This is now our territory, and we get their diamonds and shit. And that's kind of the same thing that they did with the Middle East. And then you have to have sides taking sides. So in the Cold War, we were supporting Israel. USSR was supporting Syria. They're supporting a bunch of other countries over there that we were not supporting. And it became part of the Cold War, where everything that we could do to advance Israel was not just a win because we were trying to set Israel up as a state after World War II, But it was also a win because it was taking power away from the USSR and their back territories that were over there. So it became just like it became a giant clusterfuck.
The whole world's a clusterfuck.
The whole world's a clusterfuck. But yeah, Bin Laden, he was our friend. Bin Laden was a great guy for us for a while.
I'm scared of what happened in Afghanistan with us backing rebels, like freedom fighters, is going to happen in Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, it could. If you give out money to
violent groups who,
yeah.
Ukraine's fighting for its independence, but you got to be.
So is Afghanistan.
Yeah, but there's a couple of bad hombres.
Yeah,
we gave some arms and money to.
Yeah, there are definitely some bad hombres. There's some like literal Nazis that we gave money to.
Yeah,
and it's the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But yeah, watch Charlie Wilson's War. Have you guys seen that movie?
Yeah.
Mad Dog, that's your assignment. Watch Charlie Wilson's War.
That's the name of it?
Yeah, you'd like it. Tom Hanks.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm in.
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh, love him.
Does a great job.
May he rest in peace.
R.I.P. And then a bunch of other people. But yeah, it's about how one or two people in Congress found themselves in a situation where they could fund the rebels, the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, as the USSR was trying to take over Afghanistan. And so they found themselves in a position where they could buy like Stinger missiles and like all these weapons and fund Afghanistan in the hopes that they would beat the USSR, which would lead to the USSR's collapse, which would be good for the United States. And then after they beat the USSR, then it's like, okay, now we have to fund this country that we just helped liberate. And Congress was like, nah, fuck it. They did their job. USSR's out. And then that core group of Mujahideen became Al-Qaeda. And then the
Taliban.
Is that real?
Well, no, the Taliban protected Al-Qaeda. But yeah, they're like one of the same. But yeah, that's
a real story?
Yeah, so like the CIA
like created
helped create Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda, yeah. In a very roundabout way. Not in a way as in I don't think the CIA went overseas and said,
let's start this.
You should hate the United States and you should do a terrorist attack. You should do 9/11.
But it was kind of like trickle down.
It was like, okay, 1980s, beat USSR. We're going to give you all these cool weapons because we're on your side. And then, okay, you guys just beat USSR. All right, we're going to go home. Please, like, have a good life. And then that eventually they find new enemies and then boom, we're in their crosshairs.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
And that's a move. Okay.
The world's a fucked up place.
Who's Charlie Wilson?
Charlie Wilson was a congressperson from Texas
who
helped to
at
fund
the core of this.
Yeah, helped to fund the Mujahideen against the USSR.
Is that person still alive?
I think he's dead. I think he just recently died.
Oh. God. Okay,
I'm pretty sure. Go watch it. Yeah, it's a good movie.
Also,
that's why I said we just fucked this whole thing up. This whole human thing up on Earth, we fucked it up.
Also,
yeah, I mean, there's everything that you try to do, you're gonna fuck something else up.
Also, last sort of far out conspiracy, there was a group, Urban Moving Systems was a group of Israeli movers who left to work on 9/11 to go watch it, and they were basically, someone called the cops on them because it was a bunch of quote unquote like, you know, Middle Eastern looking people all sitting and filming the towers. And it was then basically, this is like used to sort of like frame Israel for it, but they may have been a Israeli intelligence group who were actively working on infiltrating any sort of terrorist organizations around New York City who are helping funding Palestinians. And it was a very complicated situation where some of like all Israeli citizens, they found out that some of these individuals had served in the Israeli military and also been on intelligence forces. So they're not sure if they were just they found out they were in the country illegally, but they didn't know if they were operatives or just a bunch of guys working for a movie company overstaying their visa.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a complicated one that is kind of hijacked to say like, oh, Israel was behind the attacks, but every single Israeli has to serve in the military. Right. So it's kind of like, you know, synonymous.
Can I ask a dumb question that I probably should know? The Israel-Palestine conflict.
Yeah.
When did that start?
Well,
Actually, I have two questions. When did that
Israel
start?
became a state?
well,
Which was when?
It was 1945.
the Israelites.
45 or 46,
Oh,
right?
so it's been going for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the
Like,
U.S.
but at this rate?
it
A
was
basic summation of it is people from Israel believe that they have a stake in that territory.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I believe biblically they say they have that stake in it.
Oh, yeah.
And the U.S. Helped give them that land in 1945, I believe. They were exiled from, where were they from? Were they from Germany?
Everywhere.
Yeah, it was kind of
Eastern
from
Europe,
everywhere. Like, Jewish people were kind of like being persecuted, and so they carved up a land for them in what was modern day Pakistan, and the stake, the claim is that they had claimed there from before the Ottoman Empire.
You mean modern day Palestine, right?
Palestine? Did I say
Yeah,
Pakistan? My
yeah.
bad. Palestine.
There were several places they wanted to put them. Like they were considering the Congo, Argentina, that they were going to give a Jewish free state, but the best spot.
And so they chose that, and it's, I mean, it's obvious what happens, right?
Right.
What happens there is you put a people in the middle of a land where they say, hey, they're here now, and they had claim to this land, and they're like, no, you didn't. War is going to ensue, and then you continually fund that state, where the people around it are not funded and in poverty. You're gonna have conflict, and that's the very basics of it. But I mean, it's very nuanced, it's very detailed. Like we fund Israel to this day.
Yeah.
Israel
it's very
tries to
common.
protect its people extremely aggressively because they're always under attack.
Yeah. Historically, Jewish people have been used as scapegoats. They've been attacked. They've
Yeah.
been exterminated. They've been, the Holocaust, obviously,
Right.
but there's a lot of other times that they've been attacked. So they are very protective, and they're always waiting for the next group to come attack them because it's happened so frequently to
Right.
them. And so you take that group that you're trying to protect, you put them in the middle of a group of states that have religious and cultural hatred towards them.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because you're taking land away from other countries,
Right.
giving it to this state who claims that they have the right to it, and then all of a sudden you've got just like a powder keg,
Yeah.
and it's not ever going to be peaceful.
Right. And then my follow-up question to that, when we invaded, Iraq, Afghanistan, when the Iraqi war started, did that pour over into this conflict, or are those two separate? I know they're two separate things, but like, did A have anything to do, or did anything happen with that?
Wait,
That
Wait,
was the
I didn't-
scapegoat to go into Iraq. Are you talking about Palestine, or are you hold on? Are you talking about 9/11?
Kind of like, did the Iraqi war and then the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, did those two have any intersection?
we give a lot of we sell a lot of stuff to the Israelis,
Okay.
so we fund.
That's just, I just don't know.
we give them a lot of weapons and shit. And there's some speculation that we've even given them a nuclear bomb, which has been in the news recently. But we give them a lot of stuff, and they use that to protect themselves against Iraq. So Iraq does not like Israel. They,
Okay.
like, especially Saddam Hussein's Iraq did not like.
Really, the bordering.
Right, because aren't they all close?
Yeah, no.
Countries.
I mean,
No one. They don't
No.
have any allies.
the
over there.
Israeli. I mean, the Israeli
doesn't? Iraq?
army.
No, Israel.
Israel.
The Israeli army fought off in like the 7 Days War. Egypt, like how many different armies?
A bunch.
Like a bunch of dudes try to pull up on Israel, and Israel's just like, nah, bro. Like we got this, and just like 1v3'd.
That's a great description of the.
Honestly, yeah.
Like smoked them
Okay.
in 7 days.
Every country around Israel says it should not exist and does not acknowledge that it exists.
So what do they think is, or what do they consider Israel?
Terrorist state.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
It's like if somebody, in their eyes, it's like if somebody, like, say Russia came into Arkansas and was like, yo, this is Russian territory now, and we're like, no, it's not.
but and we
and
wouldn't
then
acknowledge it
just
as
set up
Russian
and
territory.
then just set up shop there. But we didn't have the weapons and stuff to defend that land, and they were the superior power. Whatever they say goes in that. I mean, that's basically what foreign policy is. It's like who carries the bigger stick, and so those people over there feel like they got their land taken. I mean,
Also, there's tons
hundreds of
holy
thousands of
sites.
people were
Well, yeah.
displaced, right? So like people were put out, like literally out of their homes and had to migrate into other parts of Palestine. And how they like cut the pie was really weird too.
They put them in pretty bad housing for the most part too.
Bad housing and separated them. It was just
And
it's a
Israel
really
is like
complicated and a very nuanced situation.
because they are so protective of themselves. Israel is because of given their history and their people's history.
and they have no one else.
They're also like expanding into different parts that they believe also belongs to them. So there are different settlements that they're building that are taking land away from Palestinians because they say that this is our land as well. And then now you've got like an internal conflict where Palestinians respond by rocket attacks and just firing weapons indiscriminately into Israel. And then you've got Israel, whenever they're attacked, they come back harder at the Palestinians. So now you've just got escalating battles against
it's
each
just
other.
one on top of the
It's
other.
just one on top of the
It's
other.
a big
yeah.
it's like a big
Also,
dick.
the
And
reason
it's never gonna be
right.
settled.
Also, the reason why a lot of countries, several states over from Israel, like several countries over, like why the hell, like even Afghanistan hates Israel, is because that those lands played a huge role not only in the Bible but also in the Quran. Like there's places that like Muhammad went in
And
Israel, and
obviously
like they
Jesus.
also find holy,
Yeah.
but then
Well, and then like Tel Aviv is like still super.
Oh, right. No, of course.
Yeah.
Like there's tons of religious sites in Israel. And that was one of the reasons why a lot of the Christian leaders after World War II were like, well, you know what? Let's make sure that these holy sites kind of,
Stay
we'll
holy.
let, like, okay, Jewish people, we'll give you your place here, but just
Okay.
make sure that these sites don't totally become Muslim. And that was sort of like the deal.
Mm-hmm.
We just mansplained
No, honestly.
so hard.
No, honestly,
Yeah, it's like a good little synopsis.
that was a
I
good.
don't have an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't. I know obviously about the conflict on a very basic level, but it's
It's
so
a lot.
much.
I mean, think about how much kind of different foreign interactions there are. It's our relations with China, our relations with Mexico, our
Right.
relations with the Middle East. It's hard to know any of this in very good detail, and so as you know, it's a good broad understanding of it.
Yeah.
Now this is where it gets really crazy because I never thought about this. Where does Israel get its oil? Russia.
Do Israel and Russia have a good
makes sense.
relationship?
Yeah, so I was thinking, wait, does Israel, like, because you would think that because they're right there, Israel would get its oil from the Arab oil states.
But if the Arab oil states don't
But
like
don't
Israel,
like Israel,
We have
and if they can't depend on them.
Large outside the studio.
Okay, let's let them in.
hi Lord.
That knock on the door from Large means that it's time for game time. Game time, game time, game time. We love Game Time. They are the official ticketing partner of Barstool Sports. Game Time is a ticketing app that makes it easier than ever to score last-minute deals on tickets to sports, concerts, and shows, and they guarantee the lowest price. There's some great NFL games. NFL starts today. Holy shit, guys. I can't believe I just said that out loud. The NFL starts today. If you're listening to my voice, NFL's back officially. We got Bills, Rams, tons of NFL games popping up all over the United States. That's what happens in NFL season. I can't wait to go. I'm going to go to a Commanders game this year, maybe even two. I might go to the one in New York, might go to the one in Chicago. I'm going to be using Game Time to get in. I know that Big T's gone to a bunch of baseball games. Avery went to a baseball game, caught a foul ball, as I recall, at the baseball game. We've been using Game Time all year here in MLB playoffs. Big T, you're going to go to the Mets-Braves series, right?
If the Mets are playing the Braves, I will be there.
And it's
sure.
Game Time for you.
Only.
Congratulations, by the way. You're in first place in the NL East, right?
First place.
How about
10.5 game lead erased.
That's crazy. That's
They're in
wild stuff.
shambles.
They are in shambles.
Hockey season's coming up too. Gonna need game time for that. Rangers Caps again.
Yep.
Full
Have to make a stop by at that game. Hopefully get a different result this time. But I love Game Time. They're the easiest app to use, best user interface, and you get this best last minute deals on all your tickets. It could be concert, a show, sports, whatever. Download the Game Time app, go to the account tab to create a login, redeem code MACRO, $20 off your first purchase, terms apply. Download Game Time, last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
See the zoo in North Korea where they got Azalea the chimp who smokes cigarettes?
Oh yeah,
Pack a day?
dude. The funniest thing is the drug use of apes in captivity. I find it so funny.
They hand her a lighter and a pack of cigarettes every day.
Yeah.
Welcome to Billy's world.
No, I mean I like what like there's a gorilla, silverback gorilla in California that drinks Busch Light, and it's the funniest thing.
I like the baboon who likes magic. You ever seen him?
I haven't seen him, no.
Oh, he's awesome.
Is he impressed by card tricks? Can a
Very
baboon
much
understand
so.
cards?
Yes.
They-
That's exactly.
It's an orangutan, right?
No, he's a baboon.
Oh, is it?
They just arrested a rhesus monkey in Japan.
Really?
How can you arrest something that's
Yes,
not human?
they
I think
arrested.
you just mean captured,
So
right?
No,
basically
they
put it back
arrested
home,
this
it's already
monkey.
in jail.
So does it
Right?
stand trial?
I gotta find this. It is the funniest thing
I don't-
because
PETA went to like North Korea and said, listen, we don't approve of this monkey smoking every day. And like some North Korean officials, like our leader killed his uncle with a flamethrower. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we don't give a single fuck
I
what
need
you
to
think what
find
we
this.
do with our
Yeah,
apes.
Kim Jong Un is like firing artillery shells at individual people
Yeah.
Yeah.
to explode them.
Yeah, blew a guy up with a mortar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Draw straws to us to do his daily briefing, right?
If you recognize that sound, that is yes, you're correct. It is Large, recurring guest on Macrodosing, and his lovely wife Annie, Saint Annie,
St. Anne.
Saint Anne.
Mm-hmm.
Do you prefer Anne or Annie? I think I go back and forth.
You know what? I've had this nickname for probably the better part of 25 years. So, but most people call me Annie. So it's St. Anne, but
Saint Anne, but Annie.
everybody calls me Annie. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you
What a
guys for
difficult bitch, huh?
joining us. Yeah.
I didn't.
I'm
name
I'm
I
going to
didn't
take
give
the
myself a
Saint.
nickname.
I'm removing the Saint
Yeah.
because of that long
I'm going to go by
explanation.
Grande today. Yeah.
But Large has been on the show a few times, and Arian and him have become fast friends. So Arian was excited to hear that you're coming back, and we've been discussing. We've been talking about 9/11 today, and the build up to it, what happened, the aftermath, how we reacted, all this sort of thing. But we figured it'd be good to talk with you guys because you have a very close connection to the day. You lived through it in many, many ways. So we want to have you on the show and, just kind of give you the platform to speak your mind on it. I know that, like some people are uncomfortable talking about it. You guys seem like you've been very, very comfortable in the past. Do you enjoy talking about it?
I think for me, it's something I've done from day one because I went straight back to work. And when when you work on the trading floor, there's no privacy. There's no separation from anybody else. You're in a booth with 35 people and only one of you and works for the same company, the person standing next to you. Otherwise, everybody works for different outfits. So you really have no choice but to be as exposed as anything. You know what I mean? Like there's no privacy.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back, I went back to work right away. There was just no way to really hide anything. So if I was having a bad day, everybody in my booth saw it. If I was having a good day, everybody in my booth saw it.
Yeah.
I never spoke about it since 9/11, and she lost so many more people than I did. So I was also like the type of guy that would turn channels whenever it came on anywhere near and around 9/11. And then it was 18 years before I sat down to write that blog, which they put out every year.
Yeah.
And when I was done with the blog, I was just as tempted to hit delete as I was to publish, because as a content provider, sometimes when you share something personal and you put it out there into the ether, anything that comes back at you hurts a little bit more. So I put it out there. I don't want to use the word brave or anything like that, but it was like a different thing for me to be like, And then what I got back from the commenters that day and whatnot, and everybody from you guys, from social media, was so almost exclusively positive, which doesn't happen in our industry anymore.
Right.
There's always somebody at the end who's like, oh, by the way, you're fat. It was almost exclusively positive that I said to her, this is cathartic. If we get the opportunity to do something, man, it's changed this into such a negative type thing to a positive.
Yeah.
So when Kevin had her on last year for the 20th anniversary, like Kevin Clancy tried to like wring as much out of her as he could. He asked for her memory box, which Nick Hamilton, the talented Nick Hamilton, made into like one of his Game of Thrones things with like different stuff from, you know, what we cut out that day. And sitting down, and she spoke to Kev for like 2 hours. And again, like I'm going to use the word cathartic a couple of times. Unbelievably positive. And we had a fucking suck day that day. We had a suck fucking decade afterwards. But, you know, the inflection point for us was like 18 years. And the Barstool platform and everything since then has been, this is the first year in 21 years that I won't be seeing her on 9/11. We're opening up Kansas. So Eric, the guys are in Iowa for college football. And so it's just me and Spider in Kansas and Megan making money and Kelly from Vegas. We're going to go to the thing. So I would not be able to do that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, because I was keeping her head out of the oven for all intents and purposes. So it's gotten so much better since we started sharing the story, I think. You agree with that?
Oh, definitely. Well,
Yeah.
he wouldn't even talk about it.
Yeah.
He would not talk about it. And it was one of those things that I think because I was so close to it from day one and it was always in my face, I got so numb to it. And it got to the point where like almost like very off-putting. Like people would bring it up to me and I would just speak so frankly about it that you could actually like see people kind of like, she's talking about 9/11 so casually. But it really was just in my face constantly. So, you know.
Have you found that, like, are you mad when you think about it? Is that your first reaction? Or is it anger? Is it sadness?
I don't think I ever really dealt with it. So I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah.
She gets mad. Yeah, she gets mad. I mean, she's not a huge crier. So it was, you know, like I had mentioned that when they finally had, like they hadn't found the bodies yet or anything, but they still had a memorial service for my father, for her dad, and all the other guys that we had lost at St. Patrick's Cathedral. And I mentioned this before, when she went up and eulogized 9 different guys, like she went up and gave 9 guys like their due. I stood behind. I was on the podium at St. Patrick's Cathedral when I was valedictorian at my high school. That's where we graduated. So I knew what the fucking gravitas of this fucking pulpit was. She went up there, she eulogized her dad and 8 guys that she started in the business with, including her Uncle Bob and all these people, and never had a crack in her voice. Meanwhile, there was this giant Asian guy behind her. People thought it was me, just so swollen from fucking crying. So she never has that like typical, you know, sadness, but the fucking anger was real. I mean, the anger for us was real too. Like even with those undocumented reports of people like, you know, waving rusty scimitars and like celebrating it afterwards, if it was or wasn't true, it caused us to be a little bit, you know, angry for a while. But, you know, like time starts to heal all wounds, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there was after the day itself, there was just a fire hose of information that was coming out and like conflicting reports about this happened, that happened, this person's responsible, that person's responsible. It must have been exhausting having to deal with like such a personal loss on a national platform. So like everywhere in the media, everything that people are discussing, it's not a news story that's happening nationwide to you. It's like, it's talking about personal loss that you've been through. Like, was it hard to wrap your head around that and to be able to like get along with your daily life when, you know, every single piece of media that you consume, I would imagine, is talking about this giant loss that you've experienced?
I think it's so personal to each person that dealt with it that just like when there's a car accident in town or somebody overdoses when your kid goes to college, whatever the scenario is, right? All you want to do is gather information. So for me, I was able to have that need fulfilled. I think a lot of people who have situations when it's just their family member, like, you know, just to them, they don't get that.
Yeah.
You know, so I think from that perspective, any curiosity or need to know something, I could find it. You know, I mean, the internet was still kind of like, you know, you could find things. It's not like it was now, you know, I mean, like now there's mobile platforms and all that other stuff. But back then, if you wanted to get any information, you could. So the problem is that it was too much And it was like sensory overload to the point where, like to your point, but I was able to sit down, and it would drive him crazy because I would be looking at every magazine, because people would take pictures and they would post them online in clippings. And I would just sit there with a magnifying glass to see if I could see anybody.
Yeah.
It was strange because if your dad died in a car accident, and every year on the anniversary of his death, every news station showed a car running into your father, you'd suck. Like her dad essentially got hit by a plane, and they kept showing that plane going in. Jeez. And then I didn't realize that as everybody else would casually watch a building like the World Trade Center on fire, which is a captivating image just to look at from 30,000 feet, I didn't realize that she was up against the glass, seeing if any of those little dots were wearing the tie that he got her for Christmas. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it was the first time that we've had a connection to something that big. And like since then, people who've had a tenuous connection to New York City or are too young to remember 9/11 or something, seeing people that they may like or listen to has given them some sort of renewed interest in it, because people forget it wasn't on the front page of the New York Post 2 years ago. 9/11 wasn't on the front page of the New York Post. I don't know what was, but I think it deserves a front page every year. That made me angry.
Yeah.
You know, like, so it's a, you know, like it's an extremely personal connection for us. And I guess it would be like somebody having somebody that passed away in a war, you know,
Yeah.
which, you know, I don't,
That
I haven't
same
experienced.
level of discussion around it.
Right. And then personally, like like Arian, what's the scariest thing that you've ever been through?
Like where I feel fear for my life.
Yes. It's not an easy answer.
Nah.
Does anyone know
I guess-
offhand?
Scariest thing, I don't have
I guess maybe just like hearing gunshots, and thinking they may hit you.
Yeah. Does anyone else have a?
I almost got into a car accident. I was driving home from my grandma's house one morning, and this car just popped out into the middle of 684, and I swerved out of the way, and the car didn't hit me, but it hit the car behind me. And in my rearview mirror, I just saw the car behind me flip 3 times, and I just like pulled over, called 911, and I was like, oh, that could have been me.
Like, and I think like Chaps or Cons or Kate might have a more salient type thing, but I can tell you right now, being 4 blocks south and 10 blocks north of 210-story buildings falling down in front of you after they got hit by planes was the most scared that I've ever been. I can't imagine something will scare me as much as that. You know, we've had some problems with kids, complications with our babies, where you're scared as a father, but I'm talking about like piss yourself scared. So that's also something that, I don't think a lot of guys want to talk about either. The time, he ducked behind a car because he heard gunshots. I don't know if that's something that you automatically want to talk about, or you had to pull over because you were shaking so much you couldn't fucking drive. Like it was like this extended thing that we weren't able to even share until we got to the other side. You walked across the Brooklyn or Manhattan Bridge?
When I got to the Brooklyn Bridge, they closed it down because there was like bomb threats for it. So they pushed up north. So I walked over the Manhattan Bridge.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we got to the Brooklyn side, that was the first time we saw each other since the fucking.
And it was like around 4:00 that night.
Yeah.
We were talking about all the uncertainty that was happening in the immediate aftermath, because everybody was like, okay, what's going to be next? You
The
didn't know
days or the hours?
the hours
The
even.
hours.
You didn't know that the attack was over.
No.
Everybody was expecting more attacks to continue happening, and you didn't know. Like they said, there was a bomb threat on the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah.
There were bomb threats everywhere. And so you guys were trying to meet back up with each other. And I would imagine that cell phone service was spotty at best coming out of Manhattan at that point,
It was
right?
terrible. We could both call Brooklyn, his mom. We
You
could
pull
both call.
landlines.
Is that how you figured out where to meet up?
Well, the way, like I was talking earlier, I was telling you about the booth space, like on the trading floor. He worked for Citigroup at the time, and they shared a booth with us. So they had tie lines to their trading desk. So when it happened, I was able to speak to him directly because he didn't leave the trading desk. So it's just like a direct line. Like you don't even have to push a button. You just pick it up, and it kind of just I could yell out over it, and anybody on the trading desk could hear that, booth B was looking for somebody on the desk. And then that's normal, like, during the day. So, it was just easy to talk that way. But once he had to leave.
They evacuated my building, and the last two people on a trading desk, my building was 390 Greenwich Street. I worked for Citigroup at the time, huge bulge bracket trading floor, like, 400 traders on the floor, multiple, 20-story building. The whole building was cleared out. There were two people left in 390 Greenwich Street. It was me and the guy who ran my trading desk. And it was me trying to figure out whether or not people were alive. And this guy was on saying to every customer, as soon as the market reopens, we'll be making aggressive two-way markets. As soon as the market reopens, we're making aggressive two-way markets. Going down the thing, calling every
and
fucking
I was doing
customer.
both. I was doing the same thing, only I was both. I was talking to him, calling my family, but I was also calling my customers. Like if, Dick Rosso says he's opening at 9:30, there's, if we open at 9:30, 10:30, doesn't matter. I'm here. Like I was doing the same thing.
Was that just when the first plane hit?
Yeah.
Or did you, because
the first and the second.
When did you just stop like taking any attention to
Like work's over for today?
responsibilities?
When they fell.
No, I would say I think when DC got hit, that's when Dick Rosso dropped the gates, and he said, if you're in the we're dropping the gates. If you're in the building, you're in the building until we reopen. Otherwise, we want everybody in. And then once we went into lockdown, he called it a day.
Did you guys think that was ridiculous at the time? That
he saved so many lives doing that. If he didn't do that, so many more people would have been on the street when Tower 2 fell.
Can I give people the dichotomy of where we were at the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Annie was on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have said.
Yeah. And I was on Citigroup's trading desk. Annie and I worked for her father when I first started, and I was banging the boss's daughter. And then we got married years later after I'd stopped
You love
working
saying
for
that.
her. I love saying that. Love it.
It's such a power.
My
line.
dad didn't love it, but
Yeah, he did not like it, did not enjoy it.
You
which is
would,
why
you,
I
you
said
would
it.
not have been
Yeah.
her dad's first choice to.
No, my dad loved him. He just didn't
Okay.
like that he said it.
Yeah, we had like a Hamptons house together, Dad and I. Like he's
He
part.
was close with my dad. They had worked together he started in 93, but we didn't start dating till 97. So him and my dad had a really tight relationship.
Right.
Was there? Did you have to keep that secret for a while?
We kept it secret until I left to go to one of his biggest customers, and which guaranteed that he would be doing business with that customer. You know what I mean?
Consolidating power, like in Game of
Yeah.
Thrones.
The Lannisters.
Exactly.
Yeah. The McCarthy house joined with the J.P. Morgan house. So Harvey Young. So when I had worked with him, and every Tuesday we used to do breakfast at Windows on the World. And for people who don't know, the top floor of the North Tower was this beautiful restaurant that had absolutely breathtaking views and had very good food. We did our Tuesday morning breakfast there every week. And it was just all the brokers, clerks, heads from the New York and the Amex would go up there and have beautiful breakfast. It was an eating club called Blue Sky. Jules was the guy who was in charge of it, and I was very close with him because we'd had all the stuff there. I had since then stopped working for her father, like I had said, JP Morgan, then to Citigroup. So Citigroup's offices were very close to the World Trade Center. So I used to still go up on Tuesdays for the free breakfast and to meet all the guys that I had started in the business with, which means nothing. Those guys that I started in the business with was her Uncle Bob Toomey, was guys that she started in life with that have known her since she was a little girl, because Annie, even through their divorce, Annie had spent time, lived with her dad and stuff like that. So she was very intimately involved with all these guys. So we used to go there every Tuesday, which is the first clue because 9/11 was on Tuesday. Annie had a root canal on Monday. So on Tuesday, she didn't go to breakfast. Instead, I dropped her off at the New York Stock Exchange, and then I came up to Citigroup. So now if you can picture these two giant towers, 4 blocks south is the New York Stock Exchange, 10 blocks north is Citigroup. 8:40 comes around or so. I'm interviewing a young lady for an internship. All of a sudden, the plane comes in. And the plane had come from the north and hit the North Tower, so my vantage point was very good to look at it. Hers was not, because she was south, so there was still some questions going on. So when she decided that the shit hit the fan, and when I decided that the shit hit the fan, even though we're only 15 blocks apart, were two totally different times. Because I was able to leave Citigroup and start walking towards her after the second plane hit. And then as I was walking towards Annie, the first tower had fallen. And so I got pushed to the water because of the rubble and the smoke. And then I had made myself, then we were going to go down and meet at the Downtown Athletic Club, is where we used to have all our Christmas parties and stuff. The Downtown Athletic Club is where we had memberships. When I worked for Dad, it was like a safe haven for us. And so that tower falls. I get pushed to the side. I talk about it in the blog, how like a cop was running in front of me, dropped his gun. I reached down to grab a gun because I always wanted a gun, but I just missed it, and I had to just keep running because I was running for my life. And we all got to like the fucking the barrier, as like, the fucking rubble like came over us. It was unbelievably just terrifying. You turn around, all of a sudden Twin Tower lost a twin. And she then had come out from being inside the confines of the New York Stock Exchange, kind of getting her cues from Dick Grasso, who's the president of the stock exchange at the time, Texas Tornado. Dick Grasso, little tiny guy, looks like a turtle without the shell. And if she would have been allowed to come out, or if members of the exchange would have been allowed to come out, they were so close to the site, they may have been inclined to be someplace where all of a sudden 100 and some odd story building would have just overtaken him. So I do believe that the guy had saved her life as far as that goes.
I was talking about conducting business.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was talking about. I wasn't criticizing.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
What was your
100%.
question? I apologize.
When did you know that there was no business?
Basically, when did you know, like, because I watched 2 hours of all the footage of what had occurred. And since I was 2 years old, a lot of people in my life were affected, and like, going to school and kids weren't there, and finding out that a bunch of parents had died was something that was some of my first memories. But when did you like realize, because watching the footage, it was, a pilot had crashed, planes had gone into buildings before.
That was the first thing I thought, that it was just a random like Piper plane just hitting it.
When did you realize, when was the shit, like pure fear? When did it hit, and when did you like abandon all responsibilities?
When so where I was situated was I was south of the towers, and the pilot missed when the first plane came from the north, it hit. But when he came in to hit Tower 2, he missed it. So he had to circle down, and he circled down the bottom of Broad Street, like over. So I heard it go over. I heard it go over our head, and you heard, like, he accelerated, like, and he gunned it the last, 1,000 feet. So hearing that, the sound of the engine was definitely it for me.
Yeah.
I heard it. I heard him gun it, and I heard him hit, and then I felt it.
He missed the first time?
Yeah. He did a lap down so basically he came up Broad Street from the bottom of Manhattan. So he came up over us. So hearing him gun the engine, and then him hit, and then feeling everything shake. That's when Dick Grasso came over. Like, we all knew it. And then that's when he came over, and he was like, we are locking down the building. This is obviously terrorism. And then when DC got hit, we had lost power for a few minutes. And my friend, with the guy next to me, his sister was a cop, and she had gotten a call that DC was hit. So we had known by that, like, it kind of all came within like the next.
So it hits at 8:46, the first one.
Right.
And then she's going about her business, wondering what the fuck's going on for 17 minutes until 9:03 when it hits the South Tower.
And in that time frame, like, I'm calling my other clerks on the other side. Like, I'm asking them, because normally when we go for breakfast, because I wasn't a broker at the time, and clerks have to be on the trading floor by 8:45. And my dad was one of those people, like, well, I got the luxury of going with them because I always got there early, because I would drop him off usually first. And I would order breakfast for everybody. So being that morning I didn't go, they didn't have to be down on the trading floor early. So they kind of just lingered. And so I was putting up my brokers, and I was calling my clerks on the other side to see if they had seen them, because to be still up there that late was unusual for them, because usually they were on the trading floor by 9. And then, you have to take the elevator down, get off, switch elevators. So normally they would leave by 8:35. Like 8:35, we were already in the elevators. So like the window for them to still be up there versus getting out was so tight, but my dad had stepped aside to let somebody else get on the elevator, because he was bullshitting with somebody about theater tickets or something. So he stepped aside, let her get on, and she was the last elevator down. And she called me. She felt like she was so overcome with emotion. She's like, I just felt like I needed to apologize. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Survivor's guilt's a real thing.
it's a real thing. It really is. I mean, it's because you just want to, like, what if I could just go back, if I could just change it, like maybe I didn't do something.
We didn't
wrong,
find
you
this
know.
out till a long time afterwards. So you got to think that around that time thing, was he in an elevator on the way down? Is he trapped under the rubble? Because, you know, it seemed to be like anybody above the blast was fucked because it caused a 13th floor gaping hole in the tower that was fueled by a 1200 degree fire. So nobody above it. So, but what if he was in the elevator and he was in the sky lobby or something at the time? So we were very much going through the rubble, trying to find his remains. Metaphorically, we're waiting for somebody to come back because there's all these reports, fake reports too. And that's where things started to pop out. People trapped in air pockets. So many people going to the hospitals that they airlifted people to New Jersey hospitals and whatnot. People unconscious and with their clothes burned off so they didn't have any IDs. All this stuff. They started to have like fake logs of where people were. And then I was like getting these logs off a line and people were signing, yes, we just checked in Jim Morrison and Elvis Presley, like people fucking with you. Going down to the armory the next day, then going to the Red Cross. She swabbed her mouth and her mom swabbed her mouth. They took her mom away from her, was left with her dad. That's what they went after bone fragments with. It was such a long process of going through. Her uncle was one of the first people found. Uncle Bob?
Pascuma was. He was the second person. He was number 2.
Yeah. And, perhaps his body was bellowed out of a window.
But he was on the phone with his son when the building collapsed. So when they found him completely intact. Like
The air pressure might have thrown him out of the window.
I don't like. He was trying to get to the roof, so maybe he was in the stairwell, and because the roof was locked.
Yeah, I mean,
Some people got on, but I don't think I don't know if it was Tower 1 or 2 where they actually got on the roof, because there was a big problem. There was a big fight between the fire department and the police department about whether or not there should be rooftop evacuations from 1993.
yeah.
So one of them had a helicopter, one didn't. So it was like a big controversy, but the doors were locked because of that. So I don't know whose side was what, but
I mean, all the different possible scenarios of what could have happened after.
that's all you go through.
Yeah, I feel like it would drive you insane. It would have, and I don't think that it's like completely natural to go through all those scenarios.
Definitely.
There are people that you care about. You're naturally going to think, okay, what if this happened? What if that happened? But at the same time, it's also got to add just a tremendous weight to you to have to like bear that burden of constantly be thinking these things through. And then, obviously like the fake logs that get set up. Who did we ever figure out who was responsible for those? Like
No.
what type of person? I'm trying to think of like the psychology behind somebody that would
Could be a
set
cell.
set up a hoax like that.
Could be a cell that
They're trying to make money, like, oh, subscribe to this list or whatever it is. Give us your credit card information. We're updating.
No, it was so what it was is that every time you went to one of these places and somebody was accounted for, it was just handwritten. So people were just typing in. Like I don't think they really paid attention to what names they were transcribing.
So there were actual real logs, but
Yeah.
people would update with like fake
Screw
names
around.
that they'd
Yeah.
put in there.
Mhm.
So from what I've heard, they didn't really find any survivors, right? It may be one or two that were in the rubble, but for the most part, it's like if you were there, you were done.
If you were found, it was because you escaped on your own. Everybody else was basically pulverized.
Yeah.
We just told a story on Twisted about the act. Christopher Lee. He's got that great voice. He was Count Dooku in like Star Trek. He was Saruman in like Lord of the Rings. Like a classic actor.
Was he the
Oh, yeah,
first
yeah, I know that guy.
Dumbledore?
No,
No.
different guy.
No, that was Richard Harris, I think.
And like Christopher Lee speaks 6 languages, is a professional
You'll recognize
opera
his
singer.
face.
He's been in more movies than anybody else in the history of film. Classic voice, classic sound. Like he climbed Mount Vesuvius 3 days before it erupted. And I was thinking to myself, wow, that must be a fucking great feeling. Like cheating death. You know what I mean? Like maybe, the 2 stories that Aaron and Billy had shared that they cheated death. What about the people that were like, my aunt was on the 19th floor and she like reluctantly hit the stairs, walked out, and just got beyond the rubble point where a fucking building fell behind her. Like that's got to be something too, you know, like the survivors of that. Like I couldn't imagine.
Survivor's guilt.
People who were there were probably, you know, there were people with strong opinions being like, we should leave now.
There were
And some
big
people
time
saying-
arguments about that.
Some people saying, no, we have to stay here right
Yeah.
now. And there was so much conflicting information going on. Like there's no playbook behind that. Like
None.
what do you do if a plane?
I was watching like some of the footage, and that was really hard to watch. And like there's people who were filming it outside of where it was, and they were saying, I'm leaving, I'm getting out of here. And somebody in the room with them was like, no, we have to stay. And so it's like a really, you just never know what to do. Like you said, there's no playbook, man. But I actually have a question for y'all about the subsequent chatter around it, right? Like it's like probably a threefold question. Like, what did you feel about as far as like wanting and needing answers as to how it happened? And also, what was your feeling with all of the chatter about how it happened? So like the conspiracy theories that pop up, and how does that like emotionally affect you? Or, you know, did it at all intrigue you?
I mean, I can speak for myself and partially for Annie. I wasn't interested in any conspiracy theories. I didn't want to go down any kind of rabbit hole. I was going to just take for gospel whatever the government told me it was. I just wasn't in the market to start to do this because, you know, we speak about how strong Annie was throughout this process, and she was incredibly strong. It was the most impressive thing I've seen in my life. But it was also like trying to keep my family together. You know what I mean? Like, because we were, you know, we were in dire straits. You don't want to leave a person when they're down either. You know what I mean? But so I was like, let's just move on. You know, right the ship. But she was into these conspiracy theories. Like, so she kind of got into them because it was almost like something investigative, like who killed my dad type thing. Yeah. I think one of the things that may have given her some sort of closure is during that Operation Neptune Spear when Rob had killed him, you know, finally killed bin Laden. Like that was really one of the only times that I had seen Annie get a certain degree of closure because she kind of knew that bin Laden was tied to it. So Rob O'Neill is the Navy SEAL. A lot of people don't like him, unfortunately, because he broke that code and spoke about all the stuff that they had done, whether or not he did it alone or all. It doesn't matter. I had met the guy who had shot bin Laden. That's all I needed to know. I introduced him to my wife, and she seemed to have a tremendous amount of, closure with that. But before that, she was game for a lot of that shit, right? Like you were paying attention to a lot of them.
Yeah. Like it's hard. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. What were the ones that you were interested in? Because there's so many, and I know a lot of people get kind of angered by all the speculation that was about it, but being someone who was affected, which ones did you sort of give any sort of penance to?
Well, 93, when it happened in 93, there was a lot about that too. Like it started back then. And
do people know what happened in 1993?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit. That was Ramzi Youssef, right?
So I think he's talking about what happened to me on 93.
She was there too for that. It was fucking wild. It's fucking wild.
PFT. Just to give you I don't want to keep you all day. I'll keep you all day with this. Trust me.
No,
but
go ahead.
When my parents got divorced, I lived with my dad, and we lived in we had an apartment, one of the in the hotel that was attached to the North Tower. Back then, it was called the Vista, and my dad parked down in their parking garage, and he was on the when you first pulled down, he was on the first parking level, and he was right up against this wall, and when 93 had happened was the first time we had bought an apartment in New Jersey. I was running late again, and we were getting furniture delivered. So the guys got there early. It didn't fit on the elevator, so he had to wait while they carried up these stairs. He ended up missing his morning meeting that morning. But more importantly, for this story, his truck was with him in Jersey, not parked in the regular spot.
Yeah.
So when they came down into the parking garage to plant the bomb for 93, instead of parking 2 levels down, they parked in his spot up against the wall. Shit. They were supposed to park at the last spot on the floor below it, because then it would have put them underneath the vault. And when it blew up, it would have taken the whole thing down. But because it blew up the way it did, it kind of like reverberated off the wall the way it was. So he got tied up with a bunch of, people collect. We want to see a bill waiting for the couch. You proved that because
the investigation behind that
was
like
insane.
why was this terrorist parked in your parking spot?
In your spot, like he was never not there because he parked there every day. Honestly, we have a street named after my dad on the corner of Thames and Trinity because every Tuesday he started those breakfast meetings on that corner, and he only moved up to Windows in '85 maybe, but because he always held them on the street corner. So, his truck was always there. It just happened to be that day we were moving, and if it wasn't there, they would have parked in the correct spot. So
quick question: that I actually didn't, the vault.
It was something about where he parked. He was the last spot, and it was up against like. The way he described it was the vault, I guess maybe under the mark. Is that was in there? What was in the Commodities Exchange? Yeah. It was like some kind of main structure, whereas they were supposed to have parked underneath it. That way, when they blew apart, it was supposed to like take that whole corner of the building out.
Oh, I remember in 2011 watching the movie that aired about, and that's my only. And that I remember they thought that by blowing up that part of the structure, the whole building would go down.
It was supposed to.
Yeah.
But they didn't park in the right spot.
They didn't count on you guys.
If it wasn't for your
couch.
Yeah. They didn't count on like
circling back.
And I'm sure there must have been like other, there were
Right.
other factors figured in, but we happened to have just been, a player in that situation. So when this happened, I remember thinking like, oh my God, like they're like purposely targeting people individually. Like I was like, they're looking for, like, they're purposely targeting to make it look like, all I could think of was Arlington Road. Like they're trying to make it look like we're somehow connected to this, major event with the Trade Center. Like it was bizarre.
So you felt like guilty of, I don't know if guilty is the right word, but you felt like it's happening again.
It was personal. I felt like they were,
Everyone's going to think that I had something to do with it.
Hands down, yeah.
But did you ever buy into, I think from what Arian and Billy are saying, that it was an insurance scheme or that Bush was behind it or that, because I know you'd given all of that, and every time I was like, just stop doing that. Just, and I pushed it off. But did you ever, and I never asked you these questions, that's why I'm reiterating them now. Were you ever part of the conspiracy crowd, or was it just something that you looked into?
No, I definitely think that when you see the way that they fell, it's impossible to believe they fell the way they did. Like I always felt like, how do you have these two buildings fall so perfect? It was perfect. They fell perfectly. And if you ever, I don't know if you guys have watched the documentary Spike Lee did, but in the third episode, they show how it was actually built. They showed, piece by piece by piece. And, that's what my father-in-law did for 40 years. He was an iron worker. He built the Trade Center. I-beam after I-beam, like one at a time.
My dad, as a father-in-law, put the antenna on top of the Trade Center.
No.
Yeah.
His dad did. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
That sounds like a terrifying job to me.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, he's the guy who crawls around on the beams.
Oh, fuck that.
Oh, you scared of heights?
Me, yes. I'm not as scared as probably most people because I spent a lot of time on my roof with him. But he's the man's man. He's macho man, and he was retired when he found out all this stuff. And there was all those questions about people being trapped in the rubble. He came out of retirement and went down and was fucking working the
crane.
Yeah, a crane to get fucking. Yeah. He's sort of so.
But I definitely bought into that because after seeing how the way they were built and knowing everything that I saw, and how close I was, and everything I felt and smelt and dealt with, like there was no way in my mind I believed that not so much that it was our government, but I definitely felt like
there were extra bombs or something.
I felt like there were backpacks dropped under desks throughout the way. I definitely felt like, they just all needed a spark. You time bomb the M80 with a cigarette and you all wait, you break them. They would break them in different spots so that they all blow off at the same time, right? And you like the longest one first. So I always felt like maybe they had backpacks planted around on different floors and the lighter fuel all just ignited them all at the same time. Like it just fell so neatly. How does it fall so neatly? Like how did nothing fall sideways?
Yeah, I would have to imagine that there's a lot of stuff out there that it gives you like solid explanations, and in a time when you're trying to figure out like who's the bad guy. Like people were saying like 2 days after the fact, like, okay, it's Bin Laden did this. So when you found out like, okay, this is Bin Laden, it's got his fingerprints, whatever, Al Qaeda took full responsibility for it or whatever, you guys were you immediately like, okay, let's fucking go. Like, was there, you know, you mentioned how when you found out that he was killed, that you were relieved by it. Was that emotional? Like, it provided closure? Were you happy?
When I heard that he died?
Yeah, were you like...
Oh, it's probably one of the only times I cried about it. Like, I was so... I remember getting nauseous. I remember I got really nauseous when I heard it. Because it was just like when you bring up like when he claimed responsibility. The first thing I did was I had to see what he looked like, you know, and I just kept staring at his face and I kept thinking to myself, but he looks so nice. Like he had such a kind face, like, because what is a face of evil, right? I didn't know what a face of evil was. I've never interacted with or experienced anything so just demonic in my life. So to look at somebody's face and think that's the person responsible, it was like impossible for me to get my mind around. And so to see someone's face and know that that person set out to do that was very difficult. Like I couldn't accept that it was a person that did that to it.
Yeah.
It was like, it had to be something, it has like, you don't think of a, what do you call it? Like you tell your kids, oh, don't speak to any strangers because of the van, the white van. It's never a person. It's never like, it's never a 23-year-old Caucasian male that's going to come and get you. It's always a guy in a van. So it was always a thing that I associated with something so evil. So to see a person's face was, I thought, very hard.
And every time we get like the second in command of Al Qaeda, like
Right.
to us, that's just, I feel like every 6 months I refresh CNN or whatever, and that's one of the headlines. For you, are you still like, does that like resonate with you where you're like, fuck yeah, we got another one?
I mean, not as
much,
strongly.
no. I
can
don't-
tell you when she met Rob, it was embarrassing how affectionate she was. It's kind of cucked. But
Yeah.
so
I
that
just-
so I don't think anything's going to reach that original type thing. But yeah, we want them all to die. Like and not as big as we did back then, which is a pretty bold statement to say. And the information was so much less back then. I mean, think about 2001. Like it's like they took her from the armory. They found out that there was a girl from the New York Stock Exchange who was looking for her dad. So like Fox News grabbed her off the line in the armory and were like, do you want to come to the studios tomorrow? And as opposed to being just the people who are putting up pictures like they lost a cat, people putting up pictures like they lost a cat of their fucking relatives all over Lower Manhattan. Have you seen this guy?
Yeah.
That's because there was no fucking internet, really back then.
But what were they going to do? Like, it's not like they were wandering. Like,
No.
I don't know what we were thinking doing that or why we did
people
that.
are so
You had to do
desperate.
it- you had to do it somewhere, right?
Yeah. So they
Yeah.
gave her the opportunity. They said, why don't you come on Fox News and put it out there? So she went home that night, got our wedding album because we had just been married for 2 years maybe. And she got our wedding album and all 9 of the guys were at our wedding, obviously. And so she picked out the best pictures of them. And then she went on Fox News and told her story, told the whole thing. And this is my dad, and this is Uncle Bob, and this is Pat Dickinson, and this is Johnny, and this is Mike Westgruman, Mike Tamuccio, all these guys, Tommy Sullivan and Suddy, but a good majority of those pictures, I was in with the fellas. So imagine you all of a sudden saw somebody you kind of knew from the floor, and the floor is a big family, and then you saw my picture. So then you fast forward as people are starting to get body parts and are starting to actually put people in coffins and stuff. I showed up at multiple funerals where people looked at me and thought they saw a ghost. They thought that Annie had lost me as well as her dad and stuff. And people were very, very happy to see me. Like in a way that no one's ever been happy to see. I thought you were dead. Like it was pretty fucking cool. Like, as far as that goes, because of the misinformation and just kind of randomly seeing it. Holy shit, was that that guy they called large or big or whatever?
Yeah.
And then to see me,
That's what we were saying with John Cena when it was reported that inaccurately that he died.
Uh-huh.
If I were him, I would have taken a couple days before I corrected everyone.
100%.
He didn't think that was very funny though, because his
Right.
friend died, or there was some. I don't know, I don't
Was
know
it a
what the
round of his friend?
That's when he was like, no, it had nothing to do with his friend, but he just didn't think that talking about death was acceptable. But I'd still maintain, like, if it's got to be a great feeling for somebody who thinks that you're dead to see you alive.
It was wild. Arian, did I answer his questions?
Arian just had to leave a second ago. He said he didn't want to interrupt the flow. Please send them my love and appreciation for sharing the story. It was very emotional. So he had to roll out real quick. He has
did I answer him?
Stuff. Yeah.
Okay. I have a couple more questions going back to that. Basically the 30 minutes when you're figuring out what's happening. What you knew it was a terrorist attack. Did you have any inkling of who may have done it?
I never even asked who did it. For me, I guess it's, I just wanted to know where everybody was. If I never even thought to ask who it was until I don't know if I ever asked. They might have came out with who it was.
We were so much more innocent back then.
Asked. Yeah.
Billy, it was so much more innocent back then. This was the inflection point where America lost its innocence. I mean, someone flew a fucking plane into a building in front of me, and I was like, drunk driver. Now you cannot light off a lady finger in a fucking schoolyard without there being an investigation.
Yeah.
That we were so the terrorist thing, when it clicked after the second one, they had the airports and the bridges shut down in 5 minutes. Then they went into, it took 2 fucking planes flying into a building before they, now right away, it's the first thing on everyone's mind because we've lost our innocence to a degree. So there wasn't, even though I know it sounds stupid, there was that 17 minutes where I was like, this is just a horrible accident. I hope everybody's alive.
That was the craziest part of when I was watching the newsreels, that the way they were talking about it after the first one hit, I was just like, everyone, I almost felt, because, I've only lived in a post 9/11 world, I was like, everyone's so naive.
Yeah.
And then when the second one hit, there was a second where there was one video where one guy's like, that guy just did it on purpose.
Yeah.
And literally,
you can't believe it. You cannot believe that this is actually happening.
I mean, it was a moment America changed. Into the America that I now know, where people think the way they think. It was that, I wrote it down, and it was in my notes when I was watching. That was the one thing that really impacted me, because it was literally the second America changed forever.
We didn't think it was possible.
It's something I never understood. You guys understand it. I never understood it because I was learning the word terrorist at the same time I was learning the word tourist. Because I remember when I was very younger, 9/11 was one of the first moments in my memory. I remember bits and parts and years after where, we're going to war. It's 2003. I'm 4 years old. I'm seeing the war in Iraq on TV every day. That the whole thing is, I was learning the word terrorist at the same time as tourist and differentiating it, and telling people we went to Boston and we're walking around. They're like, we're terrorists. Yeah, my mom's like, what?
we talked a little bit before you guys sat down about how the nation in many ways was united after 9/11. Now, if you talk to people who are Muslim or people who are Hindu or who might appear that they're from the Middle East, they probably have a very different story behind how they were treated by a lot of people. But it was 90% approval rating for George Bush right after the attack.
Yeah.
Everybody seemed to kind of be, for the most part, trying to help each other out. I think that if a situation like this happened right now, the reaction would be so much worse than it was back then. I think that having everybody has a phone, everyone has social media, the amount of misinformation that I think would get out there in an event like this, if it happened today, would actually tear us apart as a country.
I agree with you, because it's no longer right away. Everyone wants to know who did it.
Yeah.
I don't think we thought like that. Right back then, our first thought was, oh my God, is everybody okay?
Yeah.
Now it's I think to your point, because they're all safe at home in their environments.
Yeah.
Imagine how many theories there would be today.
Instantaneous.
We talk about the big theories from 9/11. You touch upon the big 3 or the big 5. I mean, there would be instantaneous, like you said, dozens upon dozens. And what people like to do now more so than they did back then was assign blame. When he came out and threw that fucking BB at the Yankee Stadium or whatever, there were a lot of Democrats in that fucking crowd.
Yeah.
But everybody was we don't have that
And
anymore.
there's so many keyboard bullies now.
Yeah.
Everybody
yeah.
just wants to be like, I'm right, you're wrong.
Everybody would make a brand about it right now to
Right.
be the first person to say like, "Oh, look, this is why it's Biden's fault," instantaneously, or
Right.
this is why it's
100%.
Trump's fault. There would be somebody that like had some sort of information about Trump having a building in a certain
Exactly.
Fitting the narrative
Yeah.
too. Like this is Antifa. These are
Yep.
like
instantly would be a big. It would. I actually think it would just tear us completely apart.
It takes the
if something
human
like that
aspect
happened.
out of it altogether.
It does, and you're right. Like after the day was coming to a close on that Tuesday, I remember that's when the news station started to report about the terrorist chatter. Oh, it's looking like it could be Bin Laden, but that wasn't even just a discussion.
I think
until
that was when the
much later
first
in the day.
conspiracy theory happened, because the woman from BBC, I don't know if that woman Jane something, had reported that they said that tower, that's like seven World Trade had collapsed, and it hadn't collapsed yet. And they were saying, well, how did she know it collapsed when it hasn't collapsed yet? And there was like that time. And now there's, BBC's like, we didn't even keep that footage. What do you mean you didn't keep that footage? How do you not? How do you have? You're going to tell me that during the biggest day event in history for terrorist attacks, you didn't save your video footage from your reporting, and nobody believed that.
Yeah, and
We
talked about this before, but the reason why Building 7, no one had a clear story on it was because the fire that was raging in there, that building had been evacuated, so no one knew.
But it was an FBI, CIA type building. That was the,
or they had the SEC records.
Right. It was like
that destroyed
exactly what it housed was what
Could've
made
used
it.
that years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, but I think everybody thought it was like so wild that it happened. But if you were down there, like where I was, my shoes were sticking to the floor.
Yeah.
On the floor of the New York.
So hot it was on the floor of the
That's
New York.
how hot it was on the floor. Because New York City is riddled with subways. It's a whole subway system. So what is the first thing that goes through them? The heat. They're gigantic venting systems.
Oh, the heat from the fires.
So when the Trade Center was burning, like it was escaping through every avenue that it had, and we're just all tunnels.
Was there a subway station under the World Trade Station?
Oh yeah, the whole
100%,
hub.
I
It was an
didn't know
entire
that.
hub. The N train, the J train, the F train, the M train, like every train, and then you have the trains coming in, going
path
uptown,
train?
path train. Like it was
And
a
then the
major,
heat-
major hub. So the
my
heat from
God.
both towers was just escaping. So I'm walking around the train floor hearing, like everybody's feet is sticking to the floor because we have the F train below us.
Annie's saying that it fell so perfectly but she's only saying that because it didn't fall over like a tree. It imploded. But Billy, the amount of rubble from this thing downtown Manhattan, like, so I had to leave my car in the city. I had actually, when I got pushed out when the tower fell, I tried to get into my car to drive. So I took it out of my lot. And then my lot wasn't open when I got in the car and I turned it off. All bridges and tunnels are closed.
Yeah.
So then I had to park it on the street. And I wasn't. When was I allowed back in to get my car?
You and your dad went back in the next day, the next month, because your dad. Well, my father-in-law came out of retirement, so when he drove in with my father-in-law, so that he could go to Ground Zero and run the cranes, because they needed someone to do it. And the thing was, which was I thought was kind of cool. They only wanted experienced people. They didn't want people that hadn't worked there less than so many years. They didn't just want, newbies on the job. They wanted experienced people because now they're dealing with rescue. It was still search and rescue at that point. So they
took
wanted
me in
someone,
hazmat suits.
Yeah.
To get my car, which had 6 inches of dust on it. But,
you were just I'm just dropping my dad off.
and I'm on the outskirts of what would be considered quote unquote Ground Zero.
Right.
So what was going on down there? The amount of fires, that was going on underground and stuff like that is
They were still going too.
100%.
Oh, they were going for
It's-
2 weeks.
Yeah.
What was
the
Maybe
smell?
longer.
The smell of what everyone at 390 Greenwich. The smell of what people just had said was burning flesh, but obviously it wasn't. It was something so much more that permeated through that neighborhood for months. Like they're saying the whole mesothelioma thing. Like I've had multiple attorneys reach out to me, to see if I've had any kind of long-term effects. Reached out to Annie. What it did to Lower Manhattan is staggering. And I know you're a young lad at the time, but it's absolutely staggering how many dumpsters they had to fill.
If you came into our
that's-
garage and went through some of the boxes that I still have, you would know what the smell was. You just
Yeah.
open it
Dude.
and you can't.
It would probably open up because I remember like
It's-
I remember, so my father was working outside the city at the time, and he got my grandfather as a cop's badge from his house in Yonkers to get through the roadblocks. He was just flashing it because
Right.
I was hiding in a basement with my mother. I don't remember this. This is all told to me. And I mean, like, I could not imagine the fear that was just happening at that point, like at that time.
Like even on the bridges, like when we were walking across the bridge to get to Brooklyn, like I was like, man, we're sitting ducks.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's crazy that, you know, we can laugh about it. And by the way, our story is small compared to, you know, some people, but it's the first person account. I actually wrote this in the blog too. I was looking down when I ran away after the tower fell, and I'd gotten so far north, and I was on the West Side Highway, right? So I was on the Hudson River, and I looked north because the wind was blowing south.
It was blowing right over you.
Yeah,
I've-
so the wind
I
was
just
blowing
looked at
south,
the picture.
blowing towards
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
It was
So
going
I was
towards
on the
Brooklyn.
west side.
Oh.
So the wind was blowing the other way. So I was looking northwest towards New Jersey, and it was a beautiful day, absolutely beautiful day. And then you turned around and you looked southwest, and it was a Mad Max movie. You know, it's you know, then like CGI can't recreate that, obviously.
The
But-
one thing I remember from that, like you little things stand out. Like right before I left, I didn't leave until 1. I actually clocked a ticket just out of habit. Like I wrote the directions to my uncle's wine store in Brooklyn, and then I clocked it before I just out of habit. Like I still have that. But I remember when I walked out, I couldn't believe between where I was and where the Brooklyn Bridge is all the shoes. There were, I've never seen so many women's shoes on the street
Yeah.
in my life.
People were running and
Yeah, like you fuck these
ditching the
heels.
shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it was just,
Man.
there were shoes like, and it wasn't like a pair of shoes put off to the side. There was like, just like as if you just dumped a whole box on Lower Manhattan. It was,
Yeah.
that was
And
bizarre.
then as soon as we got home, then like, you know, you got to go, you know, to the Armory and to the Red Cross and to all this stuff. But I can remember pretty vividly at one point we were at her dad's house and we're still holding on to all hope that they're going to find somebody.
That was
Right?
Friday. That was Friday.
Yeah.
That
And
was
then all of a
Friday
sudden I get a call and it's Jules. It's Jules from Windows of the World. And so he'd said, Large, I'm so glad that you made it out. Can you talk? And so I went upstairs to talk, and he'd said, listen, from all of, and he was plugged in. I mean, the guy ran Windows of the World. He wasn't there. He was like, from all purposes and all reports, I can tell you that all the guys were up there at some point or another, and none of them made it out. None of my people, including. So then I was like, holy shit.
From the point of impact.
Yeah.
Because
So
he came in on the 92nd floor.
Yeah.
So
And
then
he-
I was able to hang out and go downstairs to her family, and almost, you know, like then it was a bomb. Like I was like, guys, we're done. You know, like we have to start doing, you know, tempering our expectations. Like false hope is fucking terrible. And then we went about trying to find, you know, parts, and then we found enough to
So what happened was,
jawbone and a hip.
I had, like my sister and my mom and I went with my mom. We did the DNA, and then I had called in the following July to see if they needed any more. Like, do you need another test? Do you need any more samples? Like, I didn't know what they needed, and they said no. We like, and it was like now everybody gets real litigious, right? Like you can't say anything if you're not next to kin, and give me a paperwork proving give me your ID, give me this, that.
Right.
So when I had called, the guy was like, oh, no, we just need someone to come and claim him. We've been leaving messages with your stepmom since March. I'm like, I mean, and she's, you know, right up there with bin Laden. But I didn't know that, you know, I was like, wait, what? So he was like, oh, I thought, you know, you would have known. So I had no idea. So I said, well, listen, I'm not going to, he's like, oh, I don't know if I should talk to you. I said, please just tell me what you know. And, you know, we're just going to, you know, I'm not going to sue you or anything for not, like, no one's suing anybody.
Yeah.
Just please tell me what you found. And that's when he told me they had found 8 bones basically from head to toe, like 8 hits, that he was found in the elevator under the North Tower. Like they had been using like the basement as like a makeshift ramp to clear away stuff. So in March, they were able to go into the basement, and that's where all the elevators that had come out of service, like that had basically just been cable cut, had gone. And they said he was, in the elevator that, so I mean, he, honest to God, like seconds, like just a few more seconds, like it's not even a minute, But and I think that was the first time that I had some sense of closure, because you hang on to this idea like maybe he didn't want to go back home, like maybe he did see this as an opportunity to get out of a terrible relationship with a terrible person. You know what I mean? Like you do have all these ideas in your head.
Yeah.
So having that sense of closure, like I didn't understand some of the people who didn't want to know. Like there's a lot of people who don't want body parts back or don't want to know if there's a DNA match.
Because the thought is like they might have made it out, and they can keep holding on to that one.
I guess they do. I can't get my head around not wanting to know or not wanting to have him back or denying him the proper burial type scenario.
Right.
So I think the first time I really dealt with it was when that happened. Because I
don't think they found anybody who used 9/11 as a restart. Like I think about Olivia Newton-John, who just died. Like her ex-boyfriend went out and
faked
you hear that story?
Like on like
Olivia Newton-John, like he went on a fishing trip and crashed the boat, and everyone said he was lost at sea. And 10 years later, he's in Mexico, like sipping boat drinks. He just wanted to get out of town.
John McAfee might have done something like that.
Yeah,
the antivirus guy.
Like I don't know if anyone did that, but that was a mindset for a lot of people who were desperate at 9/11. Maybe some people just used to hit the reset button.
Yeah.
But obviously I've never heard of anything that happened. But again, like desperate times, does that. But it was at that time it was at that time that we had, we had gotten the confirmation that nobody had gotten out. Then all of a sudden we had gotten the idea that there were these, these pieces, these parts waiting for us. And then you can tell them then to sign to call off the dogs because we're going to cremate this. We don't want it to become like some sort of morbid jigsaw puzzle. So, but we had enough to, then do a proper burial so many months later and whatnot. And then that's, was a certain degree, right? That kind of put, and how long was it before we wound up?
That was July. That was July of 2002.
Right. So, like 9 to 10 months later, you'll send it, which is the longest that you'd ever have to wait for somebody, right? I mean, if your dad died.
I think I can't imagine the aftermath of, that following later that day and the next day. I would imagine that laws were kind of optional. If you had to get around the city and you were trying to find people that you cared about, like you would probably okay, a fence isn't going to stop me from doing anything. Like police have bigger fish to fry in that situation. They're dealing with imminent matters of life and death. Do you remember, were there anybody, did you see anybody taking advantage of that situation, like breaking into storefronts, things like that? Or did society continue?
I
don't remember any looting or anything. I really don't. Do you?
I'm so fucking negative on New York City. I am. I'm not a big fan of what has happened to this city and whatnot, as a guy who grew up in it and went to school in Lower East Side and stuff. I will tell you that it would have been a lot worse if this didn't happen in New York City. The way New York City came together after this, and I give it all the credit in the world. I think New Yorkers had the right attitude in getting the fuck away. I think a lot of more people would have died on that day if it wasn't for this New York type thing. Like, all right, let's get out of here. You know what I mean? As opposed to stand still and perhaps be sitting ducks. I think there was a New York attitude, and I think afterwards, I think there was a real, even for people who did want to take advantage and loot, and I'm sure there was a ton of it. I think there was a real fear that there would be backlash from other New Yorkers who would find scumbags that were trying to loot. You don't get that anymore, as they're looting Fifth Avenue right now, perhaps. You know what I'm saying? But back then, I think New York did a very good job in the aftermath of 9/11 and on that day also.
This is some real shit. We're gonna get through this, and if anybody's if anyone's doing anything,
yeah,
We're
exactly. You're not gonna mess with my New York.
Yeah.
I think New Yorkers became very New York.
Right, but I mean, also if a fucking ATM got blown up during it, and there was a bunch of all that shit had happened.
He tried to grab a gun.
Yeah, I tried to grab a fucking gun. I'm
did
sure
the
there
cop
was
go
some
back for his gun.
I have no idea. Well, then we were fucking scattered. Nobody went back for anything.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about how when you saw everything happening on TV, when you saw the towers fall.
It's the only way I saw it. I never stepped out of my building.
Yeah.
You,
I never went to the window. That was the end of my booth.
There are no
look up.
windows in. Yeah.
you could feel it though. I
I
would
felt it.
imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Like
yeah.
shook the building that you were in.
Yeah.
When I saw it on TV, my first thought was, my God, that's got to be like 20, 30,000 people probably
Easy.
just passed away on live TV. And the fact that it was 3,000 was shocking to me when the numbers came out later. I think it's about that same mentality. Like a lot of people that were, their first instinct was like, let's get out of here. Let's
Yeah.
leave. And obviously the emergency services did a good job getting people out as best they could.
Mm-hmm.
But it is kind of, looking back on it, it is, I expected it to, the numbers, just from a number standpoint, to be so much higher than it ended up being.
Yeah.
No, definitely a pleasant surprise considering how much just pure rubble. You could have fit a lot more people underneath there. You know, honestly, and you know, and you hear these stories too about them passing, you know, old people down, you know, 50 flights of stairs who couldn't make it and all that stuff. And all that stuff I take as gospel. All those great stories. I even take those stories about the guy who's banging his mistress in his apartment and his wife calls him, you know, are you okay? It's like, what do you mean I'm okay? I'm at my desk.
Yeah.
You know, like turn on the news or something like that.
Yeah,
You know, like
all
those
those stories
stories,
came out.
those were floating around like crazy at the time. And those, you know, you can almost entertain more so than, you know, the people who took out, you know, essentially bought a put the day before. But,
And I think what celebrities became, like who became a celebrity for you, it was big then too. And I'll give you an example. Like there was this guy. Now I think the majority of the people that died were above impact, right? Like for the Tower 1, it was like 700 people, right? Above impact, which was the 92nd floor. And then in Tower 2, it was a lot more because it hit lower. But there were people who, there was one stairway out of all those buildings, all those stairwells, there was one stairway that worked, you know, in Tower 2. And there was a guy, so there's this guy named Brian Clark. I don't know if you've read about him, and this other guy, Stanley Pramath. Have you seen them?
Is this the red bandana?
No. He was the other one. He was, I think he was the guy that was going up to help people come up and down.
Okay.
And I think he got trapped in the collapse of it. They're the guys who own the beer, do the beer stuff.
yeah.
But this guy Brian was a manager on one of on the floors above impact in Tower 2. And when the shit hit the fan, he came running down stairway A. Just on his way down, he found other people that were running up, and like people would argue with him, like, "Oh, you can't go down below. There's no way to get below the point of impact." So they were all finding a way to get up. Well, he's like, "I'm not going. As long as I can get down, I'm going down. I'm going to keep going." And on his way down, he had heard somebody screaming. It was this guy Stanley. Like he found this guy Stanley on maybe the 72nd floor. I'm not sure what exact number. He gets him, and the two of them keep going. They get into a fight with this other woman who's screaming at them, saying they have to go up. And he was like, "No, as long as I can keep going down, I'm going down." They came out and got literally to the street as the building collapsed. So I found that story just blew my mind. So I'm literally dropping my kids off now, 2016, at camp. I go to Starbucks to grab a coffee on my way home because it's literally right there, and I only have a short of window that they're there. And I see the guy. I see him like right in front of me. And I have to actually sit there and like, I'm like, oh my God, I got to introduce myself. This guy got out. We sat there talking for about 4 hours. I went, got the kids. I came back just about, you know, what had happened and just the whole, how he got lucky. He's like, you wouldn't believe how many people fought me that were running up. He's like, and I know we were the last ones to get out. And I know they didn't find any survivors. Jesus. Like how many people went up instead of down that would have survived?
And he just had the clarity to know
something. He's like, something.
No matter how many people tell me to turn around, I'm being drawn this way for whatever. He just trusted himself.
He passed hundreds. He's like, I easily passed hundreds of people going up.
What was the thought process in going up?
I guess maybe getting to the roof or the stairway being blocked. They didn't want to push past fire.
Yeah, there was big fires too, right? So I guess maybe they thought that something was going to put out the fire. You know, it's an unprecedented type thing to be on a to be in a building where, you know, a dozen floors or so are blown out and you're still above it. You know what I mean? Like coming down and trying to chase through, I guess it was just getting hotter and hotter, right? Because it was a jet fueled fire. You know, like I think that's a natural thing to
Just get away from it.
get away from that. I mean, that's all I can think about. I could put some thought into it.
Did you guys ever think the towers were going to fall down when the planes hit?
God, no. When that first tower fell, and again, I have a different perspective because I was outside watching it. Even when the second plane had hit so hard, coming south, coming up, it hit so hard, it almost blew through the other side. So the first plane, like if you look down, by the way, everyone was on Greenwich Street because it was a straight shot down to look at what was happening. It was a great vantage point for photographers and whatnot. And then the second one, like the whole thing happening was, you know, so confusing, you know, what was going on. And then when you kind of got these other reports, it was so terrifying. You know what hurts now too is like I see kids and whatnot see this guy Giuliani who's become like an absolute cartoon character, like, you know, just get rallying back to New York. You know, at that time, like I'm giving New Yorker stuff, guy was a fucking stud.
Yeah,
you know, like that's kind of how I remember him. And now he's getting thrown off of The Masked Singer and stuff like that. It's funny how you know this time passes because the individual heroes you don't really remember too much, but he was one of those ones that was just
That's what I'm
so
referring
fucking
to. Like, who became a
outstanding.
celebrity to you? Like,
yeah,
He was
the
a
individual
fucking
heroes
stud.
from that.
yeah.
I mean,
I think
That was a crazy old man.
we're all looking for in the aftermath of a situation like that is somebody who's in a position of leadership to show just a basic amount of humanity and to show empathy for what's happening and to show that you're part of that community that's experiencing the loss. And people will naturally root for you and want to support you. And then as years go by, you start to learn more about the guy. And it's like, oh, well, he's really gone off the deep end lately. But in that moment, he was a great leader for New York, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He did a great job. He was called what, like America's mayor?
Yeah, but it
after
goes
that?
back to the FDR days. You don't elect a man in a wheelchair. Like the less you know, the better about the right. Like people kind of like to be kept.
Just give me the highlights.
Just give me the highlights.
Show me the highlights.
What was the last
Nobody's
time?
perfect.
When was the first time afterwards that you heard a 9/11 joke? Like,
Oh my God! Right
like,
away.
I think
I
if it
worked
was-
on the floor. We like
yeah.
they didn't stop. Like
no,
they
but I
started
mean,
that
like
day.
in public, like Anthony Jeselnik or something like that. Like that was one of those things too. I think you would hear it that weekend in comedy clubs. Like, you know, Pete Davidson is obviously, he jokes about it, his dad and all that kind of stuff. But for a while there was a certain degree of too soon, bro. Like the too soon stuff
Yeah.
really started back then.
I never think it's too soon.
The too
I
soon
think-
police were out in full
Yeah.
force.
Huge.
They're like active patrols.
She's right. The floor has absolutely zero
There's no
regard
filter.
for anybody. I mean, people who had lost people are the first to do it. The floor is where I get all my too
aid
soon
material.
stuff. Yeah.
But it's the only way to handle things. Like we deal with stuff. We're different animals. We deal with it head on. Give it to me. Tell me what it is so I can deal with it. I don't want don't sugarcoat it. Don't pretend it didn't happen. Don't, give it to me exactly how it is because it's the only way to get past it.
How do you guys feel about the memorial and the museum?
we didn't go to it for how
The
many?
music. Oh, we didn't go until
We had zero interest in
a couple
going.
years ago.
Zero interest in seeing her dad or her uncle or any of the guys' names or anything like that. Years later, my buddy Scott McCarthy was in town with his family, and he said, we want to go down there. And I floated it by her. I was like, I know I've been avoiding it and you've been avoiding it. You want to go? She was like, all right, fuck it. So our friends from California came down. She went on there was a separate line saying family members. So she went on the separate line. Otherwise, there was a huge line to get into the fucking place. Winds up, she's on there as a family member. They gave us this white glove treatment, walked us through, and it was interesting. A lot of the stuff was, we
It's
didn't
like
really
a mini
learn.
version. It was like a dollhouse version of what we actually
Right.
saw that day. So it's like
But I've always resented people who were there, like, Instagramming in front of the fucking melted beam.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, even we went to the World War II Museum down in New Orleans, and it's my favorite museum in the world. I think it's fantastic. Like, I wouldn't actually, I wouldn't throw up a pose in front of a fucking punji trap from the Pacific Theater.
Right.
You know what I mean? But people tend to do that in fucking New York. So I thought in that respect, there was a little bit of disrespect, but the museum itself was very nice, and it really rolled out the red carpet for people who were, I don't even know how we were on the list of family members.
I think it might be a situation where if you're going to lie about it, they'll like let you lie about it, but
Right.
it just they're going to let you live with the fact that you lied to cut
Right.
the line at the 9/11
Right.
museum.
But I never put my name
You
on
know?
a list.
What a yeah.
Like if you want to be that person, you can be that
Right.
person.
No, I'm saying I never put my name on a
Right.
list to
So
be a
someone
family
must have.
member.
Or maybe
Somebody-
they just matched up a last name.
No, like underneath
Maybe.
Rick's name, there was family. Somebody must have submitted it.
I think Billy has to go like take
I have
a
to go
call.
pee. I've
okay.
been drinking mate all day. And I'm,
Right, right.
I'm
You know
just
what I
trying
did
not-
It's been
find
very
weird?
funny watching Billy for the last like 5 minutes.
Squirm.
Like,
Squirming.
act like, oh, should I get up and go? Oh, they're
That's right. I think
talking
my
about
stomach
9/11.
keeps growling, so I don't know if anybody hears that. That's mine.
Yeah,
But like, I did find it weird when we went to the museum. Like, I saw everything, so I wasn't really affected by it because, like, this happened Tuesday. The following Monday, I was right back at work. The 17th, I was right back at work. Like, there was no time. The only time that was downtime was when the exchange itself was closed. I was there for the day opening, conducting business as usual.
do you think that helped you or that?
Oh God, yeah. I would have never been able to survive dealing with that. I'm not very like, I don't do well with emotional stuff. So this pretending like ignoring it was great for me.
Mm-hmm.
But when we did go down to the museum, and it was only a couple of years ago, I didn't know they had actual audio of like Ata talking to the people, which really shouldn't make a difference because any
Oh, the
any
guy-
of the hijackers
yeah.
talking to any of them really should be all the same. But for whatever, he was the pilot that flew into the North Tower, so that's the one I just kind of focus on. And I didn't know he addressed the passengers. Like, I didn't know he said that they were turning around and if everybody just stays calm, everybody will be just fine, that they're, I didn't know any of that went down.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of tough to hear. Like, I thought that was, like it was almost like hearing it for the first, I mean, I was hearing it for the first time, even though I probably heard it 1,000 times, but I didn't know that. Like, it was weird to think that there was something about that I didn't know.
Yeah, because you would in the aftermath. I'm assuming that you turned over every rock. It was-
Everyone. I mean, I studied everything. I went through everything. I turned over every rock. I met
Except
every.
they built a fucking museum and we didn't go to it for 10 years.
Well,
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
honestly, we didn't
after,
go to
like,
fucking.
I'm talking about in the days
Yeah, yeah.
after, like in the first 6 months.
Yeah.
I was hyper focused on everything.
So to tie it in a little bit with what's going on in the modern world, there's a lot of talk about Saudi Arabia and about they're doing all this sports washing. They got the Live Tour, all that. I've seen a number of like families' statements that they've made about this. Do you guys feel any certain way towards like the kingdom of Saudi Arabia, or is there any like is there any group of people that you still like harbor anger or resentment towards that you think will never go away?
I definitely know that I definitely hold Saudi Arabia responsible, without a doubt. I mean, this gets funded, right?
Yeah.
This doesn't happen unless someone pays for it, and the money trail is there.
Have you looked at the victim's lawsuit?
Like the Jasta lawsuit.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
That
It's not even about the money, because you're
Right.
never going to see a dime from it. Like, no one's ever going to see a dime from any of that.
and
Be
even
sweet if we did, though.
yeah, even if you could get money from Saudi Arabia, they've got plenty of money. They'll have more where that
Right.
comes from.
It's more of just like, I find the people that funded this so fucking arrogant, and I think their arrogance is what is not going to be allowed to go away by these Jasta lawsuits and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia suing them. And that's what they don't like. They don't like that they are being sued. Nobody who ever files a lawsuit is ever going to see a dime of it. And I don't think any family, maybe there are some family members. I mean, I'm sure, there's always that one in someone's family that's going to do something that's because they think they're going to get the cash for it.
Mm-hmm.
But no one's ever getting a dime from it. But knowing that you can, and that's going to annoy them,
yeah,
is
keeps the spotlight on them and
Keeps the
keeps
spotlight
people
on them, yeah.
talking about it a little bit.
But I don't think we begrudge people who play a horse in the race, but like the Live Tour or anything like
No.
that. Because if you go and you try and make a stink out of everyone, like the U.S. government does so much with Saudi Arabia. Every
Right.
bank that you fucking has dealings with Saudi Arabia, you drive yourself crazy. So, because Chaps had put that to us before he had like Faraday on or something like that. And
I think
was
that
like,
you live in
I
a
don't have
capitalist
that.
country.
Yeah.
Everybody's out to make money
Some-
for themselves. Like I understand why not everybody feels the way I do.
Yeah, you can tie money in. You can find dirty money with anyone that's collecting a paycheck in this
Right.
country, pretty much. And with that, I was doing some research into the lawsuits that are going on right now, and it seems pretty cut and dry that Saudi officials like funded this shit.
Yeah.
They paid to have this happen, and the only reason, in my opinion, that we went into Iraq is because we couldn't go into Saudi Arabia. The United States can't invade Saudi Arabia. They've got too much financially at stake. We're so intertwined with
Right.
that country that they'll never actually be able to pay for like the cost of what they did to us, because they have us over a barrel in a certain way. And I can't imagine what that would be like as a family member or someone that like experienced what happened that day. Like a lot of people that were involved in the planning and what happened might not ever be brought to justice for it. And at some point you have to, I guess, kind of accept that, but still put pressure on them to make sure that people talk about it a little bit.
Definitely. And I think when you come face to face, and I respect 100% without a doubt the way the SEAL Team 6 guys feel about Rob taking credit. I get that. I am one of a core 5 that we keep our family very tight. Families first. Our family means everything. Everything stays within our, we don't air our dirty laundry. We keep everything private.
Except on macrodosing.
Except on But so I do respect that code, family code, right? And they might not be blood related, but they're brothers, right? But I can also speak from the other side of being where I was and having Rob O'Neill tell me that he canoed the guy's fucking head. That takes a tremendous amount of real, like, you just want to say good, you know, like.
So as people in the card deck were getting killed and whatnot, there was like that type of, like, we're never going to shut down Saudi Aramco and get into the fucking palaces and do all that kind of stuff. But, seeing a couple of those people in that deck of cards, remember the deck of cards?
Yeah.
And like seeing a couple of those get wiped out.
The Ace of Spades. Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Is there anything you'd like to discuss or anything we didn't get to?
I would say that if you guys were downtown and you were on Thames Street between Washington and Greenwich, you'll notice that it's...
I think it's between
Greenwich
and Trinity.
Greenwich and Trinity. You'll notice that it's named M. McCarthy Place, and that now probably means something. That's Annie's.
They named the street corner after my dad.
And by the way, we went there we didn't do it right away. We went there 7 years later to a city council meeting, and we put it on the docket. And the guy's like, all these, New York Stock Exchange, such a tight family, American Stock Exchange. So all these guys, we had all these signatures. And they were like, wasn't there a moratorium on streets? Because they were trying to name a street after everyone after 9/11. And the guy's like, yeah, I think it was expired last year. So they were like, fuck, he's in. So we got a street named after him after one fucking meeting.
Well, you needed you needed something like 10,000 names, and we ended up getting something like 70.
Yeah, we there are people who had lot more signatures than us and all that. We're not saying that he was more important than anybody, but they put a moratorium on him. You couldn't.
Right.
So the street down there, if you guys ever pass by it, it's not just another street. It's our.
Okay, and where did that cop drop his gun? Because we'll
Let's get back
see if
there.
that
Right
gun's
outside
still
of the
there.
window. Yeah, exactly.
He actually, when he also grabbed someone's laptop.
Oh yeah, some
And
guy had left his.
He felt bad for it. He's like, oh my God, Annie, somebody left their laptop. I mean, he's worried about some guy's information being hacked.
Right.
So on the bottom, the guy had his name and his phone number. So he calls him and he's like, listen, in all the craziness, I think you left your laptop on the seat. It's like on the bench at Stuyvesant High School. So the guy was like, oh yeah, I did. He came over. Yeah, thanks. And he grabbed it and he just not even thanks,
Jeez,
bud.
I haven't thought
Or
of that in fucking
Remember
20
that?
years. Yeah, some guy was like, oh yeah, thanks. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me, bro? It was
It was
9/11.
bizarre.
I saved your laptop. When you have a clear head, I would have went back for the gun, but I was so afraid. So I took somebody's laptop and get back to him. I fucking hate that guy.
like Cam Newton.
Hope he's
Basically.
dead. Yeah. Thanks very much for having us. on, guys.
Thank you for
Thank you so
joining us
much.
and listen to Twisted History. Download Twisted
That's right,
History.
Twisted History.
What's this week about?
This week is military operations. So all military operations. Operation Wrath of God. Operation Griffin, Operation
Scorpion.
Beaver Cage. There's a bunch of them, so it's a good one. And then next week's Twisted History Stu Finder.
That was
Strap
fun.
in.
I'm excited to listen to that
Yeah,
one.
it should be
That's,
good.
that's an understatement. But thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you for
Anytime.
having us.
Appreciate it. All right, that interview with Large and Annie, I'll just say discussion. It was a discussion with them. Was brought to you by Wealthfront. If you're keeping cash anywhere that isn't paying you a high interest rate, time for you to listen up. Wealthfront is a saving and investing app that can help you earn more on your money and build wealth for your future. The Wealthfront Cash Account gives everyone a 1.4% APY interest rate, which is 20 times what traditional banks pay. So if you kept $10,000 in a Wealthfront Cash Account for a year, you'd be on pace to earn an extra $140 a year instead of like $7. That means that while your money earns 20 times more, you can keep saving more, whether that's for an emergency fund, a down payment, or your honeymoon to Rome. Talk about a no-brainer. And unlike other saving options, you'll always have access to your money thanks to unlimited free transfers, free access to over 19,000 ATMs, and no account fees. If you ever want to invest with Wealthfront, you can move your money into the market in minutes to grow it even more for the long term. Getting a cash account is super easy. It only takes a few minutes to sign up. Then you start earning 1.4% APY interest on all your cash. And if you start now, you get a free $50 bonus with a $500 deposit. There are already nearly 500,000 people using Wealthfront to save more, earn more, and build long-term wealth. So why wait? Earn 1.4% on your cash today. Visit wealthfront.com/macro to get started. That's wealthfront.com/macro to get started. This no-brainer good news has been a paid endorsement from Wealthfront, and they're giving you a $50 bonus with a $500 deposit. 1.4% APY interest on all your cash. That's a great deal with Wealthfront. All right. I'd like to thank Large and Annie for stopping by, sharing their story. Always like having Large on the show, and Annie is like the nicest person in the world. Avery likes to go out with the Larges. They are, if you ever get the opportunity to dine with the Larges, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, they're the best. I live right by them, so it's just like they're the most welcoming family, and for them to come and tell that story is awesome. I know they told a lot, but the fact that every time they're willing to tell it, they tell it with such authenticity. It's amazing.
Yep, sure is. Big T, you have any thoughts to take us home on this Big T Wednesday?
Just more life, major key, you know.
Yep, more life, major key. What was that other one? Like, we made it global.
Did.
God did.
We the best forever.
We the best forever global.
Fuck Al Qaeda.
Good point, Billy. Fuck Al Qaeda.
Amen.
I agree with that.
We the best forever.
We're an anti-Al Qaeda podcast. What about ISIS?
Fuck ISIS.
I thought you said that you were watching ISIS videos earlier today.
No, to figure out if you could burn passports.
Okay, it was for research.
Yeah.
It's like when Peter Frampton said that he was looking at child pornography to research it.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, he did say that. Yeah, and he got away with it.
Who is that?
He's the guy from The Who, the band.
Oh,
He got in trouble over in England for accessing child porn. And they're like, hey, why do you have this? And he was like, I'm doing research. And then the English Parliament was like, or the whatever the judicial branch was, they were like, yeah, you're Peter Frampton. We believe you. Fun fact. All right, Mad Dog, you got anything to dog us out of the day? Who's the dog of the day?
I don't have my mic, but dog of the day.
Dog of the day is
Large and Annie.
Large and Annie, co-dogs of the day. The first ever co-dogs of the day presented by Mad Dog. I like that. That'll have to be a new segment. But next week, just a reminder, we're going to stick with the schedule. We're going to go Macro Thursday, Nano Tuesday. So it might take you a couple weeks of getting used to, but guess what? This is the way that's going to be, and it's for the good of the show. It's for my own selfish reasons too, not having to pull an all-nighter on Sunday night and then go all day on Monday. But I think it'll be a better show. I think it'll be fine. I think we'll all get used to it, and it'll be wonderful. And sooner rather than later, you guys will be saying, thank you, PFT. Thank you so much for making macrodosing on Thursday and nanodosing on Tuesday. But,
Also, if you're listening now, we got new merch out.
oh yeah, good call.
Mm-hmm.
I like the Alien We Live in a Simulation one. That's a solid one.
Yeah, there's some really good ones. Well, you could be listening to this at like midnight, so it's not out yet. They drop at 10 a.m. on store.barstoolsports.com. So look out for that.
Check it out. Go to the YouTube page, subscribe, like on YouTube. Avery's getting the YouTubes out. It's probably already out right now if you're listening to the show. It's insane how fast they're going up.
Light speed.
Light speed. All right. God did. We'll see you guys. We'll see you guys Tuesday. Love you guys.